July 27th, 2023 board work session is now in order. Paul, roll call, please.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
Ms. Wright?
Here.
Ms. Campbell?
Here.
Ms. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Trent? Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just wanted to remind everybody that we do have a time certain at 4:30, so we can be prepared for this evening. So if we're pretty close to it, I'm going to say, hey, we got 10 minutes, so if we can start wrapping up, just to give you guys a heads up. The first item on the public hearing and rule development for board policies and bylaws 0118 through 0172. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to address this item? Is it? Give me just a second while I get this thing hooked up here. All right. Ready when you are.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. You guys are used to me normally having a speech prepared, and I don't have one, so I just got back from vacation. 0118 is the purpose of the school board. And as a educational body, I am disturbed to see that in the most recent edit after the last work session, that educational needs has still been removed from the purpose of the board. I walked away from the last meeting under the, assumption that it was going to be desires and educational needs, and yet the edit only shows desires. The word desires is an interesting choice. Neola wrote this update in 2017. We are not the same society we were in 2017. We're not the same society we were pre-2020 in the COVID pandemic. There is a heightened sense of offenses on both sides of the political line, and public education has become a political battlefront.
Ms. Kervin, if you can speak directly to the policy rather than sitting here and talking about the politics, that'd be great.
The politics matter with the wording of the policy, though I understand. How the words are perceived are in direct relation to the way our politics are and in our current society. And so when people see that the board is going to take the wording of educational needs out and put desires, my question is, why? Your job, the job of our school board is to provide our students with a well-balanced and well-rounded education so that the needs of our community are met. Our businesses rely on our students as graduates to fill the employer's needs. Our companies who operate in Brevard County rely on these students to continue the economic growth of Brevard County. And so I'm struggling with why we would remove educational needs when the entire purpose of this board is to educate our students. And that's the whole point. And unfortunately, I would love to live in a world where this kind of a change wasn't seen so viscerally, and yet it is. So I just want clarification on why it can't be both. And I just think desires is a really weird word. Maybe the word wants might go over better.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers that wish to address this item? Hearing none, it's open to the floor for board discussion. Are there any of these policies that anybody wishes to discuss? You can go either way, whatever you guys want.
118 does have the wrong one, just on
I was just
118,
gonna
yeah.
say,
We did say.
There was some
Yeah.
conversation.
You are correct,
there's some
Ms.
conversation
It should
there.
have that in there. I'll pull 118 off and we'll stick it on the next track.
Do you need
That's-
us to do a motion for that, or are you good?
I'll just pull it off. It's wrong, so
So
I'll
just
pull it
vote
off,
for
yeah.
that one separately.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it'll just go through separately on its own. The rest of the packet looks like it was accurate. That
Okay.
one just didn't get attached.
Do you need a motion in order to do that, or are we okay?
I'll just pull it
All right.
off, yeah.
Okay.
A quick question I have for Mr. Gibbs, just to make sure as far as the legality, does he need to ask for each individual policy if anyone wishes to speak to them, or is he able to group them the way that they've been
Yeah.
done?
Ideally, we go through all of them.
Thanks.
I'm sure Mr. Susan really appreciates you asking
Well,
that question.
listen, I know that that's not a fun thing, but I'm just saying for the legality of it, we need to make sure that we're compliant
Yep.
with the way it's supposed to be done, so. that's
In the
all.
workshop, it's okay to do this. I think when we get to the actual board meeting is when, on the first hearing is when we have to go through each one of them.
This is the first public hearing.
This
yeah.
is the first public hearing, so.
The
the-
board meeting, I'm sorry.
The final approval is next.
Yeah, so Mr. Gibbs, can you give advice on this, please?
I would recommend going through all of them.
All right, here we go. Fair
I
enough.
did want to address one
This
thing,
is
though,
gonna be a
because
tongue twister.
with, at the, for 118, for the purposes, answer the question, I actually, I'm going to go back and say again, at the risk of repeating myself from last time, is, I think when we start thinking about desires or wants versus needs, I mean, obviously, we're going to put them both there, but it's still important because we are absolutely an education body, we're supposed to be taking care of the educational needs of our students. But how we do that is up to opinion interpretation. And that's why that desires isn't. And there's some times where it doesn't have to do with anything educational, like what we name a building or things like that. It doesn't have anything to do with educational needs, but it has to do with the desires. So we are, I think this item, again, what I said last time is, it's about we are listening to all the desires, but we're not obligated because we can't make everybody happy to always make decisions based on what will make people happy. We have the responsibility to make that decision because it's not a mass democracy, but a representative democracy. So, thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else wishes to speak freely on the items before I start running right through them? Okay, so what we're going to do is pull 0118, right? Next up is policy 0121. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Does anybody wish to speak on this item? All right. Next up is, I do. Yes, I do. 0121.1. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Hearing none. Next policy is, I'm sorry, I have to go through this to get to them because
It's okay, I noted the same
I
thing.
didn't have them preset.
Oh, use the thing on the side.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. All right, here we go. Next policy is 0123, Standards of Boardmanship Code of Ethics. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next item is 0124, Standards of Ethical Conduct. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next policy is 0131, Legislative Policymaking. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Next one, 0133, Quasi Judicial. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Next one, 0141, Number. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item?
Sorry, Matt.
Hearing none, move on, 0141.2, Conflict of Interest. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Next up, hearing none, 0142.3, Orientation. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next, 0143.1, Residence Areas. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next item, 0144, Term. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Next up, 0145, Filling a Board Vacancy. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Moving on, 0147, Compensation. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Next policy, 0147.1, Travel and Per Diem Expenses. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next up is 0148, Use of Equipment and Services. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Next up, 0149, Access to Records. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Next up, 0149.1, Public Expressions of Members. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next up, 0154, Motions. Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Does anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next item is 0164, Notice of Meetings. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next up is 0165.1, Order of Business. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next up is 0165.3, Special Meeting. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next up, policy up is 0166, executive session. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Anybody wish to speak to this item? Next up, 0171, review of policy. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Moving on, 0171.2, review of policy, philosophy, and goals. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Anybody wish to speak to this item? Next up, 0171.3, review of policy, community relations. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. Next up, 0171.4, review of policy and ethics. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Anybody wish to speak to this item? Hearing none. 0172, visitation of schools by individual school board members and legislators. Anybody wish to speak to this item? Anybody wish to speak to this item? Without hearing anybody that wishes to speak to any of these items, I open the floor for discussion on these items, if anybody has any. Okay, hearing none. Those pass. Any questions there, Paul? We're good on those? Yeah, we're good. Did it good? All right, all right. Next is a public hearing and rule development for Board Policy 24131, interscholastic athletics. Is there anyone who wishes to address this item? Is there anybody who wishes to address this item? Hearing none, I open the floor for board discussion. Hearing none, we'll move on. The next topic is Gardendale Separate Day School update. I did, because I speak very fast. I've been
I think you
trained.
should do like an auction one time.
No. No, I'm good. I got this whole thing. I'm ready to go. Hello, Miss Pam.
Good afternoon, everyone. Board members, Superintendent Rendell. I'm very excited to give you a Gardendale Day School update. As promised, on June 13th, we focused a lot on the facilities. I said we were going to do an update on programming, and I'm so excited to share the work that has been done with the student services team, which they worked really hard to work out a plan with the administrative team. And I think you will be very impressed to see what has been done. So where are we now? We have been meeting weekly with the administrative team to work out, sorry, I'm used to the clicker, to work out a plan of support, which entails what will occur if Gardendale is fully staffed, because even if they're fully staffed, we want to keep that staff. And we worked out a plan if they're not fully staffed. So a lot of the training will be done side by side in conjunction with my team of staff, along with the staff at Gardendale, to make sure that we have a seamless idea of what should be happening and occurring in the classroom. And so we're going to start that training as far as in conjunction next week. We've also been meeting with biweekly with the facilities team and the education technology team just to make sure that we're on track for what we plan to do as far as the facilities. So from our previous PowerPoint, we had a needs assessment, and all of the needs assessment we're on track to have completed prior to or right on schedule for August 10th. The only area that we may not meet that is the playground. We put that order in last month, and they originally said 8 to 9 months, but they gave us an update, and it's only about 4 months, which is good. But we working, and it looks like we're going to be on time with the completion of some of the facilities as well as the staff. Which leads us to personnel. I'm very pleased to announce that Misty and Ms. Poley has worked very hard to staff Gardendale. Currently, it says 3. We actually have 2. They're lacking a science and a math teacher for instructional. And We're working really hard to make sure that there's a process in place for the instructional support staff being creative at request to utilize a school counselor in a different capacity as far as a position, so we can hire someone who can also support the school, maybe in a social worker capacity. So just thinking outside of the box, not creating barriers for the school, but problem solving how we can make things happen and make it easier for the school to staff that school. With that in mind, we've already begun the professional development, summer and pre-planning. We've started some of the training. We started this month, as a matter of fact, and I will give you an outline in a few minutes, where we're looking at the TEACH model, which really looks at the communication and cognitive disorder and what that classroom structure should look like, and it talks about the 5 areas that we really need to focus on. And we have those 5 areas set up in the classroom. When we get to talk about the model classroom, I actually had a chance to see that today. We've trained 2 teachers on TEACH with those strategies, and they will be the lead teachers on the campus to model those classrooms. We have the first classroom that's already prepared. The other, due to construction, is the reason we don't have the second one, and that will be in September as far as what that classroom structure will look like. But and ESE PD pathways, I'm going to explain that as well, but that's for our first-year teachers. And then our ESE symposium that's coming up. And on your slide, it says CHAMPS. We were not able to do CHAMPS because of the amount of time it takes to train the teachers, and we are going to take some behavioral strategies and school-wide expectations and create those with the school and have the school buy into that, so they have ownership of those strategies and expectations, and then train on that. And then our access project, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, and of course, counseling supports. We're contracting services for that. This is what our summer pre-planning professional development looks like. We've already started July 10th through the 13th, working with those 2 teachers on those 5 key principal areas of TEACH, which is the use of visual cues in the classroom. If you go and visit the classroom, you'll see those areas. The physical structure of the classroom, what this classroom layout looks like, and going over, the different sections of the classroom where it's specifically tailored to meet the needs of our students. Also, where they have a consistent schedule on the board, and if you go by and take a look at it, the way they have it is that the kids will be able to, you'll take the schedule off once they finish one area, so they can see that, hey, we had 7, now we're down to 4, now we're down to 2, and so they can see that consistent schedule on the board. Also, establish school-wide and classroom expectations and routines, and that's going to be key to the success of the classroom learning environment. Next, we had the ESE pathway, PD pathways, and we had these are our new ESE teachers, and we had several teachers that participated in the foundational knowledge of just our policies and procedures, collecting data. We have to collect data on behavioral for our students who are in our EBD unit, and also classroom management strategies to make sure that our classrooms have a positive learning environment and that there are routines and procedures in place to ensure success is occurring in that classroom. We have the ESE Symposium, which is coming up on July 28th and 29th and August. That is open to all ESE teachers, and we're hoping to have a huge show on that. And this is more the foundational structure of teaching and what the support and communication in the classroom looks like, looking at structures and making sure that they know what the rotations, how do you rotate with students who have, cognitive disabilities in the classroom. It may look differently than in a general ed classroom, but really modeling that process for our teachers and actually having them practice it. So many times we are in a training session where you're sitting and getting. I truly believe that you need to provide some information, but then you also need to model and give teachers an opportunity to practice. And if they have questions, you can correct or redirect and provide that on-site professional development. And that's our goal with our school-wide expectations and behavior strategies. I have committed 12 to 14 staff members to work with Gardendale side by side on school-wide expectations and behavioral strategies. They will work and actually create those together. And then on the other side, so you'll have half of them in the morning getting trained, and then you'll have another half go and practice that in our model classroom. What does those routines look like? How do you incorporate the expectations and behavior into the academics? It cannot be in isolation. So we really want to focus on behavior. It should be done and inclusive with the academics so we can redirect those behaviors. Also, looking at classroom management strategies. So we wanted to make sure that we are united on what we think is good classroom management behaviors, strategies, so when my team goes in and support, we're all hearing the same message. And then we have access points, which is our discretionary program from the state, which any kid that is on best ELA and math access points, we're going to provide training for those teachers who need support in that area. And that's going to be on August 7th. I had an opportunity this morning to go and visit this particular classroom, which is our model classroom in there. And I had an opportunity along with Ms. Baez and Ms. Bland to actually go with one of our ESC assistant director, and we had Ms. Poley in there as well. And they went through the 5 different areas of the TEACH model, and you can actually visually see where, you know, they sit in a classroom, they have the furniture, the visual clues. The only thing that I didn't see was carpet on the floor. And I said, we need a carpet space for our kids to be able to sit and look at and do their calendar and all of that. So we are going to add that. And this structure, this process will take place again on August 4th, where our team will go in and this particular teacher has committed, she's been trained, and she's excited to share what she learned as well as work side by side with my staff to make sure that we retain teachers, that most of these teachers have never taught before. So we want to make sure that they know good teaching strategies, what happens in a classroom from the beginning to the end of the day and what that looks like. So we're going to provide that. Which leads us into our program and support plan, which will start from August 10th. We will have a professional development opportunity for our teachers at Gardendale, and then we will follow that up that Tuesday and Thursday. So we're going to provide professional development, then we're going to go in and coach and model and observe and give feedback the next week. So that cycle is going to continue until December, or it's no longer needed. Or we will continue after December if that need is still there. So all of this has been in conjunction with Ms. Bland and Ms. Poley, and some of the times they felt very strongly, we don't need them there all day. We want to really build capacity. So we've worked through what that schedule is going to look like for the teachers. And we really want to make sure that we empower and we provide that gradual release of support for our teachers. And that's going to be done, like I said, until December. And that's all we have as far as what our programming is going to look like. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
So first of all, hats off. I appreciate you coming here with very specific content and a plan. So thank you. That gives me confidence that we're moving in the right direction. Hats off to only 18 positions being open. That's significantly less than the last time we met. So
It's not even 18 anymore. I mean, it's changing. This is changing every day. Misty is working miracles.
it's fantastic. And so not that it matters, but I'm just curious. So for those positions that we're filling there, is there like kind of a majority where they're new to the district, or are these people kind of transferring around and making a decision to go there?
The majority of them are new to the district, and
Okay.
we do have a few that have transferred.
Okay.
And we did keep the majority of the teachers, which is good. There were only a few that decided to leave, unfortunately. But I think the majority of the teachers have been in this district. If I don't know the numbers right off the bat, but
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't need a specific. I was just genuinely curious. So awesome. Well, welcome to all, all the new people to Brevard County and to Brevard Public Schools. Thank you for stepping up to the challenge, and I'm really, really excited about this. Thanks, guys.
Anybody else? Ms. Kim?
Yeah, just, not a question, but just thank you. I guess just really quick, because the presentation you had was just a little bit different from the one we're at. So we're not doing CHAMPS, but there's going to be, but that training day is still happening with the other direction.
Yes, but it's more focused on the school creating these behavioral expectations and strategies and working together, and the team working together to create these, not
Yeah.
just canned.
Yeah.
So,
Just personally, I wouldn't mind, I would love if you guys would send a day when you know they're all going to be there, that if we wanted to pop in and say, hey, you rock, that we could individually, not all at the same time, so we're not like ragging such or anything, but, just come up and give a hoorah in person. I would appreciate that.
I know my team and I were going to visit August 4th. I want to see it in action. I was very excited. Almost brought tears to my eyes this morning to see night and day as to what happened, what I saw on June 5th, and what they have worked extremely hard, this team. And I can't say enough to what I expect to happen on day one.
Well, I know pre-planning is split, because sometimes it's time in your room and sometimes it's time together, but if you wouldn't mind, if they already know the times when they're going to be together, that we could just like stick our head in and say, we're here, we see you, and we're glad for all that you do, that would be great. Thank you.
Ms. Campbell, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask, can we have the invitation to come with you on August 4th? I would absolutely love to come. And honestly, the work that you're doing there, I'm blown away. I really am. So Misty, from the very first time that we went and saw that school, because my heart hurt for what was happening, and I get it. We were throwing it together last minute. There was a lot going on there. But you guys are exceeding expectations, honestly. So your team is doing a phenomenal job. I love this idea of teaching and then modeling and coaching and kind of going alongside them and working with them, because it is a different world. Working with disabilities is different than working with the general ed population. So what you're doing there is going to make a tremendous difference, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some positives that are going to come out there. So if we can get the invite, I would absolutely love to come with you guys. So thank you guys.
Gene?
Just going to keep adding on. Thank you so much for the effort, the work. Misty, this has got to be great to see things, change in such a positive way. And Pam, thank you so much for what you're doing. This is kind of what competence looks like. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to ask, one of the issues that I was looking at is we only have one SRO at that facility. Is that shared by both, or is that specific to one? There's always been a little bit of confusion there. I wonder if you could help me on that.
Currently, there is just a security specialist. I've been in contact with Mr. Wilson and Major Klein, and we are going to meet to problem solve on how we can support the school, because we know that we need to be able to support a school with the SRO.
Because we have a SRO next door.
Yes, we do.
And so the question would be, like, if you have an SRO here and then you pick up the phone and right next door and you have to call and wait 20, 30 minutes for somebody to get there. So I appreciate you looking into that. I don't think you have any problem with any resources at this point if you were to need them, but bring back whatever that is. But we need to make sure that before they start that we've got an answer there. That's all. That's fine. I'm good on that. Everybody else good? Thank you very much, Ms. Dampier. Appreciate you. All right, getting back. Let me just get to my notes here. All right, next topic up is the drug diversion program update.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you to Dr. Rendell and the board for allowing me to speak to you. I feel like I just spoke recently, but I talked to everyone on June 13 regarding a drug diversion program, and I'm here just to update you on the few questions that you asked and the option for placement. So the one question that you asked talked about the kids that go there and if they fail a drug test for earn return. So I broke that down because I wanted to make sure I had the right number. And if you look at it, the North ALC, the first time they take the drug test, 23 fail. This was this year, and South was 11, so a total of 34. For the earn return, when kids go back to their school at 2 or 3 weeks, retest them, and if they're positive, they have to come back to the ALC to finish their stipulation conduct agreement. And when we retest them, the ALC, the North had 10 that failed, and South had 6 for a total of 16. So when you think about the amount of kids that we had, these numbers are extremely, extremely low of kids that are not passing the drug test. The next thing that was asked to me was to discuss enrollment. What does it look like if we start this drug diversion program, and what does it look like for the beginning of the school year? If you look at North, they'll start with 96 students. 57 of them are drug and alcohol, and they should go back in October unless they're a repeater. And the other was 39. If you look at South, you'll see 35 of those were for drug and alcohol, 28 are other, and then so for a total of 63 that'll be at South area when school starts back. So we talked about having 2 options. I thought about this really hard, and after working with the school principals, and just really looking at this and to make sure it's fair and, equal across the board, there was 2 options. So the first one is parent chooses to do this school-based drug diversion program. They would complete the Better Without It, they would have group and family counseling, have the drug testing, and if they do not successfully complete it, they would be suspended and placed up for full expulsion. If they choose to do the ALC program, they're going to go to the ALC or another approved option. They're going to complete counseling as normal like they would do at their home school. They're going to have drug testing. There would not be any earn return. And if the student does not successfully complete that program, they would be suspended and placed up for a full expulsion. So it would be the same thing at each school, and it would be, if they choose to do this, the standard would still be just as high as if they were at the ALC. So one thing that was really important that I got a lot of feedback was on the stipulation conduct agreement. So what does it look like when kids are successful there, and what are the requirements? So obviously the first thing, they need to attend school and only be absent if they have to. They also need to follow the code of conduct. Also, they need to complete this drug diversion program. Better Without It, the 4-week counseling sessions, the family, and pass the drug test. And active participation is required in all counseling sessions, because obviously if they're not participating, they're not having an actual counseling session. And transportation to weekly group counseling, family counseling shall be the responsibility of the parent and legal guardian. The only thing that I did want to add to this, because I hadn't had it in there previously, with my Title I Part D, I was allowed to use a little bit of the funds for kids that may be students in transition and can't get to counseling, that I'm able to provide that. So we do currently have a hop, skip, and jump that we use. So I'm going to be able to use that and use some of that money to help with the kids that can't get it, that can't get there. So students are prohibited also from being on another school campus, just like normal, while they're underneath this. Students are also prohibited from participating in any sports clubs, extracurricular activity. However, the length of exclusionary period will be principal discretion. So that will be up to the principal. Students may be subjected to administrative screening, backpacks, and school attire upon entering campus. That's also principal discretion, because some principals may want to check, depends on the situation, may want to check a backpack every single day, and some may not want to, so that's going to be a principal discretion. And then obviously, if principals think something else needs to be set for student safety, and that's going to be set as well. So what are the next steps? Obviously, if this is approved, I have to develop an MOU with Prevent Bavar for drug prevention counselors, and be ready for August 8th for the board meeting for it to be approved on.
Thank you.
Questions?
Does anybody have any questions? No, we got kind of this order going here. So Ms. Jenkins?
On option B, it says no earned return given. Is that a change?
Yes, that's a change. We'd be removing earned return completely from the equation. So we have this
Why?
new diversion program, and then we have placement at the ALC.
Because they can stay at their school if they pick option A.
Right, if they pick option A, they get to remain at their home school.
Okay, I don't understand that. I don't understand that concept. So if they choose to go to the ALC and they're doing well and they complete their counseling and the drug testing and everything's going well, they can't earn return back to their home school.
Right, not early. They'll still be able to go back to their home school at the end of their term.
Okay. I don't understand why we're modifying that, I guess. I don't understand the addition to that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest frustrations for the families and the schools and really everybody else involved was transferring in and out of different classes. So if you go to the ALC and you're only there for a period of 5 or 6 weeks, and you leave the classes at your home school, and now you're in different classes, and then you come back to your home school and you're not taking the same classes when you're at the ALC. So this way, they would be going back at the end of a semester, at the end of a marking period, much easier transition back and forth to classes. That was one of the big frustrations with earned return, was the length of time that you would be in one class and then back at your home school, back in other classes. So it's a way to try to, the diversion program allows you to remain in your current classes, no changes to your academic progression. So that's the advantage to that. Placement at the ALC is that you're not going to be subject to the same strict requirements as on campus, and you get to come back at the end of the term.
So I hear you on that, but I feel like our ultimate goal should be for our students to return back to their campus as soon as we possibly can get them back there. And if the student is doing the right thing, it feels counterintuitive to me that we're going to make them wait. And I understand they have option A, but not everyone has option A, because they have to have transportation to and from counseling sessions, and their family has to participate in those counseling sessions as well, which is limiting to many of our students. So many students actually don't get to choose option A in reality. So I don't understand why we're adding that. Like, how often does that happen, the earned return, where it's an issue? To me, we would want our kids back on campus when they have done what they're supposed to do. I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to wrap my brain around that one.
Anybody else?
Yep. Thank you for clarifying those questions that we had the last time. Very much appreciate it. So just on slide 3, when you talked about enrollment, that 96 at the North ALC and 63, that's day one, right? That's day one, what we will have on August 10th.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the number at each location for us to safely bring everybody back to be there full-time? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, if I look at the number right now, 96 students, that's 15, when I did the math, it's 15.6 class size. I mean, I feel like that's safe. I mean, honestly, I think October would be better when the kids are back.
Right.
However, 96 is not so egregious that we couldn't go back. Would it be better to wait until October, until this group goes? But
And don't misunderstand me. I should have clarified. I wasn't saying, can we do it right now? I'm
Right.
trying to get perspective
Yes,
of
ma'am.
how close we are, because if we do, part of adopting, and there's multiple purposes for this diversion program. One is, for me personally, I want to do better by our direct. I think we need to provide some education and resources so that our students will make a better choice.
Right.
And what we're doing right now is not necessarily working with this that has exponentially grown the use of THC over the last few years. We talked about dumpster fires, we've talked about that before. This is a dumpster fire, and it's destroying the lives of our students. So we've got to do something. So to me, that's the biggest thing. But then another part of that is if we're able to get our numbers down at our ALC. So I'm just trying to, if this is a baseline where if we were around that, so that if we have more students once the school year starts, having the option of the diversion program, we're not sending as many more into the ALCs. We're going to be able to put everybody back on campus in person sooner, and potentially by the end of the first semester, if it's, unless, that's where I'm going with that. I'm not saying, let's start at the beginning, because we're going to have other discipline issues, and we could quickly get that number within the first couple weeks up to 110, 120, we're in danger zone. But we're closer to the ballpark, so that if we are not sending as many THC kids or drug kids to the ALC, will be hopefully very quickly be able to get. Because these kids, once they go back to campus, then that number goes down.
Right.
And may not be replaced with new offenses if
Right.
they use a diversion program. So that's where I'm going with that. Okay, and then the other question I had was on slide 4 about the, no, hang on. Oh, where did it go? The one that you talked about, the stipulation agreement. It was on slide 6 about the principals, unless you've changed the slide. The length of exclusionary period is principal discretion. Could that cause the exclusion to go beyond the length of the diversion program, or is the discretion designed to possibly make it shorter?
No, it would still be 8 weeks. So
Okay.
what they're just saying, if a kid is doing what they're supposed to, following the rules, that a principal could allow them to
Could
maybe,
shorten.
not shorten, they're still
Right.
going to be there that long, but maybe be an after-school activity.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
That's what that
so a
part is.
principal
So
can't
it's
make
either-
it longer. They can't say, okay, now you're going to be out of athletic, off the team for 16 weeks. Okay.
Right.
So
No,
they could
that's-
make it, if the student is doing really, really well, they could say, all right, you've got 2 weeks left. We're going to go ahead and let you back into this club or this activity. Okay, that was my, could we make that more clear in the procedures, how you're at that, it's to their discretion if they wanted to shorten it? Because to me, it's discretionary. It means it could be longer, or it could be shorter. But I guess you're saying the whole entire thing is 8 weeks.
Right, because the stipulation will have a date on it, and it will have the 8-week date, so they can't change that. All that's saying in that slide, and I can change it, I can change the verbiage, but that if a student is doing well there, and maybe they want to go to their Spanish club meeting, and they've been doing well, that it's up to the principal's discretion to allow them to attend that club meeting.
Okay, right. Okay, that's what I was thinking it meant, but I just wanted to make it clearer. Thank you. I think that's all I have for right now.
Ms. Wright?
Okay, so I did some research on this because I was looking at this yesterday, not yesterday, Monday. I'm all messed up on my days right now because we're meeting on a Thursday instead of a Tuesday, and so I'm like, what day is it? Okay. All right, so I did some research on this, and I'm going to tell you, I like the two options. I am not an advocate for the better without it, and I'll tell you why. It is taking the model that I adamantly am opposed to, which is using social media for these kids and kind of focusing the discipline on that. And I just cannot agree with saying, hey, I like that. I don't know where the rest of the board lands on that. But what I discovered through this process that's a little discouraging, honestly, is, I called Space Coast Recovery, I called Crosswinds, I talked to a couple judicial assistants, I talked to a recovery pastor, who then talked to another recovery pastor. There is not a whole heck of a lot out there to help kids that have substance abuse. And that's a failure. That's a failure of our community. And so, I get better without it's trying it, and it's doing it in this new realm that is, what our kids are used to with social media. But I think I like the group counseling. I like the idea of the 8-week class. I think it needs to be an in-person class. And I think, I don't know, and this is gonna sound extremely crazy, but everybody I talked to said they'll help. But if we created a program that really walked alongside these kids, because we want to modify the behavior. The drug use is usually a symptom of something else, right? So we need to talk to these kids and figure out what's going on and get to the root of it. And addicted kids become addicted adults, and that's a problem in our community all over the place. So I think we have a really cool opportunity here to possibly look at launching something that's different than really what we've had in the past. And doing that with the community collaboration of several different organizations who have all said, hey, I would pick up a week of teaching, or I would do, whatever it is that we need. So that's my only thing with this. I love the option A, the option B, they get to pick one of two paths. I just am not a fan of focusing on a big part of that discipline being a social media campaign. That's an X and A for me. But I don't know where the rest of the board stands on that. So that's a conversation, I guess, that we have to have in itself. Other than that, I don't have any other issues with what's happening here. Everything else looks great. It's just that one component of it for me that I'm not a huge fan of.
So let me get this straight. You are in favor of option A, but you are not in favor of the better without it, and you would like to see a community meeting and group get together to
Well-
try to solve some of the issues.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm understanding this correctly, there's going to be option A or option B. They're going to have both, correct? So they're going to get to pick which route they go. So they either stay in their school, go through counseling, and complete the program successfully, or they go to the ALC. And so it's still, option A and B are both on the table. I'm in favor of both of these. I just don't like the social media campaign component of option A.
And you'd like to see the group
I would
come in.
love to see our community come together, and I've already reached out to, I probably have about 5 right now that said that they would be happy to sit around. Let's have a conversation. Let's create something that attacks this from the root of the problem. Because if we don't, again, these become adults that have issues, drug problems, so.
Absolutely. All right, Gene?
Yeah. All right, so I too am in agreement with having option A and option B. I think it's vitally important. Just like Ms. Campbell brought up, I had a concern on the length of the period away from the activity. Is there a minimum time that they need to be away from these activities currently? I mean, in your what you're going to bring back to us?
Currently, they're out.
Well, I personally don't have a minimum. That's something we can, have a
Well, I mean,
discussion about what.
okay.
Some principals did share their concerns that they wanted it to be a principal
Yeah.
discretion on allowing them to be able to, if kids are doing what they're supposed to do, to be able to go to those club meetings and do those things and get back into school as quickly as possible.
Yeah, the request from the principals was actually to have the ability to loosen some of those restrictions if the student is, meeting all the expectations, and most specifically, co-curricular activities, sports, clubs, things like that. When we craft the actual, policy as far as administration, we can come up with a minimum period and a maximum, well, the maximum is the 8 weeks, but, that way we're not having one school doing something drastically different than another school.
So we
Well,
can,
we talk clubs, but you
Right.
know where I'm going with this.
absolutely. So we can make a minimum.
Student gets caught on Monday and Friday
Right.
they're playing in the game.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
So
Because it'll happen.
it will happen. I mean, we mentioned clubs, but we know what clubs. And then the no earn returned. I'm happy to see that. I was there personally. The disconnect on the curriculum, the academic part of it is where this would benefit. To go back with a couple weeks left and I mean, to take that student back from the ALC was challenging for the student, for the teacher. I mean, the activity while you're at the ALC teaching, if the kid's like, hey, the student's like, I'm going back in a couple weeks, I don't need to do any of this. We saw all that. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to solve that issue, because that's an issue. So now we're taking the academics into account too, so I would be good with that. Thank you for this so far.
When you're done, we're going to go back around.
Oh, you want to go back around?
Yeah, when you're done.
Okay. All right, so for me, I agree with you on the better without it. I'm okay, I enjoy what they're trying to do, I just don't think this application is appropriate for this. So in option A, I would rather not see that be a part of it. The other question that you had, I completely agree with the, some sort of a work group or something that would come together to identify some of the needs that they might be able to help. So you have so many organizations that are inside the society that have components of what we're trying to do, but they've never been unified. And one of the things we did on January 5th when we met off-site was we identified mental health as one of those big summits. Maybe not a big summit, maybe just a work group of the organizations within the community to come to figure out what direction that you had just given, because I support that. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It just depends on what the timeline that the board is requesting, because that's going to take time. So to get it back to the board and do all of that is
That's not August 8th.
not going to be as timely as
I wouldn't say it would be to fill in to get it finished by August 8th by no means,
Oh,
but
yeah,
we
yeah,
have
yeah.
a major issue inside the community, and if you look back at when this came up as discussion years ago, we had this discussion about having some sort of, some sort of counseling and all that stuff, and the will of the board at the time was not to move in this direction, but I think that due to some of the things that we've seen over the last 2 years as far as the heightened amount of kids that are going into the ALCs for it, I think we're at a crisis for it, so I would like to give Dr. Rendell the opportunity to put together a work group and come back with some solutions, if that's okay, if we can get somebody else to give that approval.
Well,
I
hang
think
on,
that
before
that's pretty
we
good. I
finish
know, I'm just
discussion.
finishing what I would say. I'm okay with it, all right? Ms. Campbell?
So I know that I know Ms. Wright at least expressed the same concern about the format of the Better Without It at our last meeting. So knowing that, we had given staff, hey, we have some concerns about that. And then, staff and Dr. Rendell is now presenting to us this as the option. That I'm going to assume, and I think probably safely assume, that they've been out there to see what there is. And they still recommend that this is the best option. I think that we can, if I can throw out what I sometimes do, which is I think we can do a both and, it doesn't have to be either or. If we want to get this done and we want to offer this opportunity to our students, I think we can go ahead and get this started. And let's go ahead and get it going and give the community, because I'm kind of like, yes, we always say, oh, people will come together. I want to see it. I want to see it happen. So let's ask our community to help us to support this so we can make this program even better than what we have right here. But I'd like us to go ahead and move and let's get it going, get it in place. They have a structure, they have a curriculum ready to go, and then if we get people in the community who say, you know what, this is even better, then we adjust. I don't know if we adjust mid-year, but we can have something ready by next year. And also in the meantime, we will have known, is this working? Is this impactful? But you got to reach people where they are, would be the other thing. And what is going to be engaging. My ultimate goal, again, is I want kids to make a better choice. And however it gets delivered, and I'm going to throw the mental health curriculum out as an example. The state said, thou shalt do 5.5 years of mental health training. And they're trying to do it as engaging as possible, but the kids are sitting there every year, now that's the last couple of years, and they're watching it, and it's a requirement, and it's boring, and they don't want to do it. They've got to be engaged if we're going to make a difference in their lives. And so it may not be the way that we would as 30, 40, 50-something-year-olds would do it, but I haven't seen it, so it may not be the best ever, but I'd like us to go ahead and get it in place since staff has brought it to us. And like I said, Dr. Rendell and his staff are coming and saying, this is what we're offering, what we're recommending. Let's go ahead and get it going. And then if we have a better option, if our community can do a great job and come up with something that is just as engaging or more engaging, and will fit the bill, let's move to it later.
Ms. Jenkins, do you have anything?
Yeah. I think I completely hear you, Ms. Wright, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I just want to highlight the fact that the Better Without It is really the self-pacing, student-driven component of it. And so the community coming together to help our kids is wonderful, but it's also not going to meet the needs of a student-driven, self-pacing part of this. And I might be misremembering, but I feel like when it talked about the social media component, that was the overall general look of it, the drive behind how they came up with the concept to the program, but it wasn't necessarily a requirement. Like, they didn't have to actually interact with social media in this program. That was an option if the parents allow them to and/or choose afterwards when they complete the project to interact with. And maybe I'm wrong, but if you can clarify for me, I don't remember the actual program being interactive on social media during the training.
They were able to do either or. If a parent didn't want them to do it through social media, they absolutely didn't have to. It was just that conversation and being able to talk about it and going through the process of why are they smoking. And that was the whole piece of it, but it does not absolutely have to be through social media.
And the reason I'm asking for that clarification too is because I don't really remember the entire concept behind it. Because maybe, an end or a compromise would be maybe we don't do that component, right? Maybe we just don't allow that part or something. I don't know if that would work for them because they just did a quick overview, but then that would settle the concerns of Ms. Wright as well.
Mr. Trent, anything?
No, we need to do something, and if we can add to the option A, with anything from the community, we're going to be here to accept that. But we need to do something. It's just a need, and I've gone through it. I I think it's going to help the ALC. I saw the numbers at 96. It sounds like a small number. It's not. When you, I'm going to say that when you start out with 96 at the beginning of the year, anyone who's taught there is going to be like, oh my goodness, what's coming down the road. So we need to alleviate those numbers. And I think I mean we're just talking the first time drug offense situations here. That for many of them it's going to be the wake up call. And even though they choose A, it's strict, and I'm really hoping that's going to. That may just be enough. So any more help we can get from the community, the better.
Ms. Wright?
If there is a way to eliminate the social media component of it, then maybe I could say, yeah, I'll get on board with it while we work on creating the other component of this. I just, again, this board specifically has taken the initiative to say that we're going to stand with the class action that's being filed right now opposing social media and the impact it's had on our kids. So to me, it seems a little bit like, hey, we said that, and then we're going to come back and say, by the way, you have to do this program that influences, social media, and then you're using social media. So if there's a way to eliminate the social media component of it, I'm okay with that, and I will gladly help connect all the dots and help with this work group, because I've already made these contacts with several different people that have all expressed an interest. So if that's an option, then I'd say go with it. If it's not an option, and then maybe that's something that you can find out, like if this is a key component that has to be incorporated in that program, for me, that would be a hard no. But if they are willing to remove that part of it and say there's other ways that they can do this, then I think that okay, we'll go with it, and then we'll keep building on it. So it's a work in progress, but I'm looking forward to offering something other than just, hey, you got caught with this and you're at the ALC. We need to teach these kids, and that's not teaching them. Sometimes, honestly, the placement in the ALC is damaging to them, and it causes bigger problems that continue on. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this changes, how the ALC looks altogether. But yeah, if you'll reach out to them and find that out for me, I would appreciate that tremendously.
May I just, because it has to do with the social media component, my gut tells me they're not going to say, yeah, sure, no social media, because that's kind of the point of this concept. But perhaps can we, instead of doing an opt-out, that the parent would have to opt in to allowing it, so that at least like it's not an automatic, they're on it. Do you know what I mean? Just reversing what we traditionally do restricts it a little more.
My
if
memory
that's not
was
an
that they
option.
were creating a product, that it was an assignment. They were creating a product that could go on social media to help other people, that it wasn't, you're on social media all the time. That was my understanding, that they were actually creating a product.
If you can walk through that for us right now, because there seems to be a little bit of, that might have this, it might have that. And when we had that discussion before, there were no metrics that were brought forward. There was no,
Right, they've never worked
they've
with
never
any
done
other
it
school
before. They don't have an example in another school, and that's where my concern was. Can you walk through that piece? That's what because I'm hearing a little bit of.
Yeah. But just to be honest, right now, we only have one hard no.
You have two hard no's.
Two hard no's.
And
So,
I appreciate you vote counting, but let's go ahead and hear this whole
And
component.
just, I'm not arguing this, right? I'm trying to just, if they come back and say, we can't do that, I'm trying to find a better alternative that appeases Ms. Wright to say, we're not just opting the kids into being allowed to do it.
How
Just
about-
puts up a barrier.
So, thank you. If you can just explain what the components are.
The goal of this project was using social media was the majority, to be honest with you. How they set this up was because that's social media. It's always in the kids' hands. And to do something that they actually connect with. What they did say when we discussed that, there are going to be parents that they're not going to want to do this, that they said they could come up with an alternate. So necessarily not that they put it on social media, but so doing some type of storyboard, doing something else where it doesn't have to necessarily be on,
So they don't have it, correct.
so they don't have to do that piece. But I can't tell you that they're going to say yes to this and want to partner, because that wasn't the goal behind this. So that would have to be something
Well-
that I would need to go to them and have a conversation with.
I guess what I was asking
don't-
is that, okay, we know that they're supposed to be using social media and stuff like that. What does it look like? Like, what is it? So I'm a student, I go in, I've been found guilty of this, I want to start this program. According to Ms. Jenkins, if that's the avenue we go, it says go, like, what is it?
Well, it's it's a social media, there's different platforms that they can use, and they come up with a product of what can I do better without drugs? So this is why I smoke, this is, or whatever I do. And then the presentation that they come up with shows what am I doing instead of that? You know, am I dancing? What am I doing? What can I do instead of, and why do I do what I do? So it's taking all those things that they're talking about in counseling, and why do they do these certain things, and they're just putting it out the way that kids, I mean, I know that's not what we want.
And then they're posting this on social media so that the
No,
rest of.
absolutely, they're not posting it anywhere. It's just the kids are using it. It's not going anywhere. It's just that they're seeing it together, they're talking about it. They're not posting it for anybody else to see unless it was something that the parent allowed or that, you know, but no, it wasn't to post. It was
It's the
just,
format.
it was the format to go through it, to talk about it. Why am I doing what I do? And instead of how we do now, you know, making a poster board, putting, you know, doing it on a.
Making it real.
Correct,
So-
making it real life, what kids do now.
So they're making a
and putting it
video,
together.
so they're making a video for themselves.
Right,
Is
in their
what they're-
their group setting.
So
Well,
they have
Using a social media platform. It may not ever get broadcast.
right, so it's, so what I'm trying to get at is there might be another way here.
Right, I think it's up to us to go back to Better Without It and maybe some of our local providers and come up with, you know, the counseling program that we'll use. The bottom line is we're asking for, you know, approval to move forward with option A, option B, and we'll come back August 8th, we had to either way, with a contract or an agreement for the counseling component. So, you know, getting direction from the board about not too excited about social media being a big part of it. Can we have an opt-in or an opt-out, or can we do something totally without social media? We can go back and look at, you know, work on that.
There's something to be said about making a video for yourself to watch in the future, writing something that you put inside there's something to be said about having a video that you review and watch yourself and listen to yourself saying those words. That's common practice for many of our teachers when we're doing review inside the classroom. It's also known that if you write something on a piece of paper, you can slide it into your desk drawer and then pull it out later and review it. These are all things that we know work. My concern is that using a social media platform drives a different narrative. And I'll tell you, many of the things that we're finding out about social media, and one of the reasons we went to sue, was because it's part of a problem that endorphins are released, that there's all these other components that cause problems with the kids, and where we may find some of them coming into this problem because of social media, we're utilizing it as a component to further it, have issues. So I don't have an issue with some kid making a video and sharing it with their friends in a group format. That's not a problem. But putting it to social media becomes an issue for me. That's the reason. And I listen, I understand the video component of it. I understand the communications. The other thing that I was going to say is that they have group and family counseling together. And we also said inside of there that we're going out to find the counselors for this contract and stuff like that. There's another setting where they're going to be talking about that. And that intimate connection that you were talking about, the face-to-face component, is taken care of inside of there. So when we're looking at this, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have a problem with them making a video, showing it to each other, just not on a social media platform. And I think we can accomplish both goals.
Absolutely.
If you're following the same way, Ms. Wright, does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just 100% oppose the social media
Got
aspect of it. That is all. So,
So
And-
what I'm hearing, though, is the social media, which is what I felt like I remembered, but I wasn't confident in it. The social media is a tool. It's like using PowerPoint or Excel. They're just using social media. It's not publicly accessible. It's not publicly posted unless parent gives permission at the end when their work product is created. They're not on social media surfing the web. They're using that format. And so I'm not against that. I think it makes perfect sense. They're going to be completely engaged. They know how to use it. It'll be fun. And the point of it is so that they're not just hearing themselves, they're connecting with one another and creating this like commonality between one another and destigmatizing, which is great. The one thing I was just curious about is it was very quick when they said the parent has to give permission to put it on there. Like, can we just, can they just maybe clarify that for us, that they don't have the work product and they will do it at some point? I know they said that, but I would think that would be important.
And if the board requests that it doesn't get posted, it doesn't have to be posted. It was just the process of putting it together so we can make it where it's never posted. if that's something that the board requests.
That's what I was originally asking.
Because the goal is just
Right.
for the kids to go
That
through
we
the
can't,
motions.
we will not allow it. No parent can make the choice either,
Right.
that we just as a board say, this will not ever get posted on social media.
There are ways to communicate between each other that are not related to social media, and we can accomplish the goal we're doing without using social media. The platform of PowerPoint is not social media. Some of those other items are not. They're just not. And there's a reason for it. Social media is geared towards certain metrics, and I don't agree with those metrics being used at a time for kids that are trying to recover. That's all. So if you can figure out a way to make all of that work, Dr. Rendell, then I think we're in a good spot and bring it back on the 8th.
I don't think we have a majority
Yeah,
saying that.
Social media is a tool. It's a tool. It's a tool that can be used for good and a tool that can be used for harm. And, you know, and the other thing is if a kid creates a product and one of their product is to share what they're doing better for their lives and they want to go out and post it on their Instagram story, there's nothing we can do to stop them. So I think I don't want us to put something in place that makes it seem like, oh, we're going to say, well, if it's their product on their phone, I mean, we're not stopping them. And honestly, then they're using that tool for good. More power to them. They're taking it back. You know, I hear the issue with the conflict of interest between the lawsuit. I don't see that. The lawsuit was not against social media existing. It's about the algorithms and the influence and that was used in a negative light and those companies not taking, I'm trying to tap dance around talking about litigation without talking about it.
Giving you side eyes.
You know, everybody agrees, you know, that or most people agree, that it was, you know, those algorithms and things were not kept in check. But it can, just like anything, it can be used for good. So I think, to me, it's that whole point of even having that it's about engagement. And, you know, my husband is a video editor. He can take a couple hours and go into Adobe, whatever, and create a video. But the kids on their phones in an Instagram app or whatever, you know, can create a video with a message and music like instantly and have that product that they share, and then it's spreading the influence, the positive influence, and taking it back for good. So just I'm not. To me, my approval is not going to be contingent on whether we can get rid of that, and I'm not hearing that from the majority. This is an engaging process that needs to maybe be refined and see, but that's not a deal breaker for me.
Ms. Wright.
Or no, I'm right where I was. I stand behind where I was. I haven't changed. I'm okay with this component. I just don't want social media to play a role in what we're doing.
Mr. Trent, you want to give any clarification?
Some of this confusion has come into play because the presentation that we received from this group, they didn't have all the answers. They didn't even have a program. We were kind of the guinea pig. So when we say social media, I'm not even quite sure if they knew exactly what they were saying by social media. If they were talking about a video component, that's completely different than posting on social media. So it sounds like some of us are kind of guessing, including myself, exactly what we mean when we say social media. So yeah, I'm not against using video. That's not a problem. I'm not against opting in or opting out. You guys will take care of that and you'll present it back to us. Goes back to we need to do something. We have option A, option B. I think we all agree that that's a good thing. And the counseling part, I think we're going to figure that out, that you're going to do something, some homework, and you'll get back to us on the 8th. But I agree. No, but not complete social media. I don't think we want to put our kids' problems out there. Probably it's not even what it was going to happen in the first place. But I think I would assume we have some direction and we like option A and option B, and let's move on.
Dr. Rendell, you feel like you've got a strong enough direction to go
Actually, I
find
do.
some stuff,
I
right?
actually feel like we know what we need to work on and bring back.
Okay.
And there'll probably be some options within what we bring back.
Perfect.
Can
And I
just add something
appreciate.
positive to the end of this spiraling discussion, though. When Ms. Campbell talked about sometimes how it can be used positively, just remember like the ice bucket challenge, right? That thing went viral and crazy, and they're just filming, and it was on social media, but it raised, millions and millions of dollars for AOS. So I think that's kind of the concept behind this. Is it's not a negative thing to addict our kids to social media. There's a positive intention for that to generate support and progress for kids who are struggling with addiction. So.
Okay, so I think Dr. Rendell, if you can figure out a couple options, bring them back to us, and if we can start talking to some of the major groups about collaborating resources
We will see what we can do.
on some of those things. I think that we're good there. And then I think we're pretty good on the drug diversion program update. Everybody else okay? Any other comments? Okay. The next topic is lobbyist registration discussion. This is something that we talked about. We gave sort of the go-ahead to do it on January 5th. We've kind of talked about it before. Basically, it's just a way of making sure that if somebody's coming to speak and using us to try to get to talk to the decision makers, that we just have them register. It's no big deal. I've talked to a couple of the lobbyists that register across the street. They say it's a very easy process. There's not an issue. It's all transparent. And many school districts and counties throughout the state of Florida actually have this. My recommendation today would be to ask staff to come back with a policy to work it through and then come back so that we can discuss it in depth. But I think today we're just, hey, do we need to have something that registers the lobbyists? It doesn't have to be massive. It can be like Brevard's account where you go on, you register, there's a fine of like $200 if you don't do it or something like that. But that's pretty much what we're looking for, is direction to have staff come back with a couple options in a policy and then begin to register people who wish to talk to our people. And it's not just school board members. It's, you know, deputy superintendents and others. We just need to make sure that whoever's lobbying, that we know who it's coming from and they're registered. That's all. So with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Does anybody over on this side wish to discuss anything?
Sure. So I had a couple of thoughts and just questions. Looking at the models of the forms and the policies, I think we had one from Orange, Miami.
County. Miami schools, Miami County.
Yeah, there were a couple of, oh, and the county across
Yep.
the street.
Yep.
There were a couple that had fees. Orange has a fee of $25 a person. Miami had a company, $250. To me, that seems like a little bit of a, I understand Miami because they're bigger, right? But I really don't like that. Across the street doesn't charge a fee. It just seems like we're doing this so we can be a moneymaker. But to be quite honest, I've been on the board for 4.5 years. I haven't had a problem with this. I've never had a lobbyist approach me. So I've had we have vendors send us emails and we go to conferences and people are trying to get a meeting with you and I delete. We have people who handle that. I mean, I love when I get those emails because I can.
Those are like the only ones you can delete.
Right, I can delete those. It's your junk mail, right? But sorry if anybody's listening who's a vendor. But I wondered, I'm like, is there a possibility that we actually open ourselves up to more of this activity because now we have a registration and so now we're going to have people, to me, I don't want people coming to my door to try to get me. I want to do my research and we have staff who, they have a procurement process that's very detailed for a reason. I have a concern about that. Of the policies that were sent to us, the one from across the street from the county is shorter, and I like shorter, more succinct policies. I was trying to think that we have all those rules that are just apply to school boards and don't apply to anybody else, but I think most of that it was covered. I think that was probably specific enough. It's kind of just general. But I did wonder, the one positive, honestly, because I say we haven't had a lobbyist, but we did have those people with something like this, Mr. Gibbs, prevent people who have in the past, and I don't know, it's been maybe a couple years since this has happened, maybe a year. We've had people that come during public comment time and try to sell us their air products and stuff. Would that mean that they can't do that anymore?
When everybody thought, no, it's public comment, they can do
It
that.
would probably depend on the exact language in your policy. So
But it
depending on-
wasn't public comment. It was
Yeah, it was a solicitation.
a presentation of their product.
The chair should have cut
We could
it.
sell you guys our air purifiers for, whatever, yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the one that comes to mind.
Right,
So
yeah.
who to prevent that?
And they came a couple times, yeah, I remember
That's
them.
probably not a lobbyist.
And that's the same as an email.
Yeah, it would
Like,
be a
it's just that
solicitation, and
it's-
it's like,
that's
thank you,
not-
we have a procurement
right,
process, can you,
But
that
if
we
you
would
wanna
go
meet with
through, if you want to
somebody-
go through that procurement process, we can put you in touch with
Yeah.
somebody.
I just, like I said, I've not ever had a problem with it, and so I don't want to invite a problem when there's not one happening. And so I don't have a problem with us having a lobby of policy, but like I said, why are we creating something for a problem that doesn't exist? Or maybe exists for you, it doesn't exist for me.
Okay, next
Yeah, I genuinely just want to understand the why too, because I don't, I feel like, isn't this, Mr. Gibbs, isn't this technically covered by ethics laws?
Ethics covers you when you leave office, you're not allowed to lobby. It doesn't cover like professional lobbyists from coming to the board and
Okay.
lobbying.
And then, so genuinely, I'm not against this, but I want to understand the why. Like, so is this so they're forced to disclose to us and we don't accidentally speak to the wrong person and don't know that they're speaking to us that way? Like, I just want to know the why behind it.
Is it okay if I answer those real quick before we?
Yeah, go. I don't, this is.
So like, I think these are great questions and thank you for bringing them up. One of the issues that you have is that, like I was saying, it's not so much us. So you may go your entire career without somebody coming up and lobbying you. Dr. Rendell sits down with vendors, right? If Dr. Rendell sits down with a vendor, we should know about it through a registration. If one of our staff is asked to go to a meeting, they should have to register in order to sit down and talk about their products outside of the scope of business. So inside of a cone of silence, inside of a RFP process, there is you're not allowed to talk to any of the board members, you're not allowed to talk to anybody. That's already set, and that's normally how it is. But there are some times that our staff has a really good reason to reach out and have meetings and stuff like that, and we just want to make sure that way it is throughout all of the school districts and all of the counties that have it. It is not a bad thing. It's just a transparent, it's a way of creating transparency so that if an individual is speaking to the district, that they have to register to do it, and it's all there, so that there's not any behind-the-scenes kind of stuff that's going on. The other thing I was going to say to help you out with the question that you had with in regards to, like, if you've never had it before, there are some times when we go to FSBA and there's a couple of vendors that are there, they take people out to lunch or whatever it is, and then sometimes there's a good idea. So you may want the superintendent or somebody to meet them. If that's the case, they should have to register prior to doing that and make it above board and transparency so that everybody knows this person came during this time. That's all. And it's the evolution of, if you look at like all the school districts that have it, they're right around our size and just a little bit lower, and then all the bigger ones have it. So it's like, it's just part of transparency. It's not if that helps with it.
Yeah, I know, I understand, but I don't like the fee structure.
I don't think a fee's needed. I think it's just about like, who wants to collect their $25 check, and then where does that go? And that creates all kinds of problems. I think the idea would be that, and I did check across the street, and they don't have a major issue. Like, this is, hey, this works, we do it, everybody knows where we're going, and it just creates transparency, that's all.
I have a follow-up question, and it's not because I'm against it, I just genuinely want to understand a little bit better, because this doesn't happen to me, so I don't get it. Can you give me an imaginary, like, really negative scenario how this would help? Like, I just want to understand what bad thing will this prevent? And it's not because I'm against it, I just genuinely want to understand, like, how this would rectify a scenario.
Right.
Or is it just to be transparent? Is it not to prevent something negative from happening?
Yeah, I think that the transparency of knowing who's coming in and who's going out of our school district and everything else is the idea behind it.
Okay.
I don't have an example of a really bad thing, because when I checked in with across the street, the individuals that I spoke to when I was over there didn't say anything about, we have had this evil person that tries to, and we created the policy around it. It's more just about transparency,
Okay.
that's all.
I just genuinely wanted to understand
Yeah.
why.
Gene?
No, all good. If it increases transparency,
It's just a no-brainer.
I'm for it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too. I mean, honestly, I don't, if I've ever been approached by a lobbyist, I don't know that. It's not they come out and like, hey, I'm a lobbyist. I'm lobbying for X, Y, Z. So like,
That's why I was
I
asking.
don't think
I'm
so.
like, does
So
that happen?
I don't know.
Has it happened?
Yeah.
Well, if
By
they,
accident? I don't know.
if there's a business person that comes up and says, hey, I'd like to get a meeting with your IT manager, your superintendent,
that
something like
hasn't
that,
happened,
then if they do something like that, then you just say, hey, I'll set it up, but there's a process. You got to go get registered, and then you can reach out to the secretary of whoever. That's it.
Okay.
And then that creates the transparency,
Got
so.
you. Okay.
that's all.
All right. I'm not opposed to it, honestly. I'm not a huge fan of lobbyists in general, but, you know, they're
And it-
here, so I get it, but.
Well, I
And
was
the-
legitimately thinking, like, have we been hoodwinked along the way? Like, what negative thing has happened that we're trying to prevent from happening?
There is nothing
Yeah.
currently, and let me just state this, there is nothing currently that is going on, there is nothing, this is just something that's a carryover. I think that to give staff direction would say, if they could bring back something close to the Brevard policy across the street that doesn't charge any money, that's pretty simple,
If there's, did you look and see if there's a Neola template for
or have staff look for a Neola template.
Because
Like,
that would make
bring
it-
This isn't something that has to happen tonight. It's just something that I think we do. So if
One
you
of the
feel-
ones that you had it sent had a number. One of the districts, they didn't have, it didn't have like a, but one of them had a number, which might be a Neola number, but I can't remember what it is. Right? I was like a
There's
number.
literally so many of them that were out there. I just took the high to low, you know what I mean? So if you guys are okay with that, Dr. Rendell, you feel like you got good direction on that?
Yeah, I actually think it would be a good thing to have in place, so
Done.
we'll bring something back.
Okay, all right. Everybody feel pretty good about that? Next piece is the discipline work group nominations, directions, and meeting dates. I appreciate you guys taking a second and finding two of your representatives, as this is a committee that we wanted, or a work group that would start. Ms. Pam, can you come on up real quick and kind of walk through what's about to happen? There's been a lot of discussion wrapped around some of these components, and I think, and while Ms. Pam is walking up, I wanted to say thank you so much for doing exactly what the direction of the board was, but then moving like at light speed with half of a staff to accomplish all this stuff. So thank you so much, Ms. Dampierre.
Good afternoon. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Mr. Reed and Mr. Armstrong for really, they've been working really hard on trying to make sure that we're in compliance with the discipline training, as well as the work group as well. So it's my understanding that we really want to make sure that we have the voice of our community working on proposed changes to our Code of Student Conduct and discipline procedures. I am familiar with this work. I've done it for about 6 or 7 years, and it's similar to what I've done previously. So we would like to have a work group that will consist of about 15 members, 2 from board members, as well as we'd have a representative from our BASA, as well as from the BFT and the local union 1010 and SRO representative. These were consists of the 15 people on the committee. However, it will be open to the public if they wanted to come and participate. This is going to be a work group, not a sit and get. So it would be, we're taking the code of conduct and the discipline plan apart and working through those sections that we feel like needs to be amended or reviewed. And then we would, first of all, we'd want to have the names of the board by 8/1. And then we posted in September, on September 1st, the dates of these meetings. So we'd have a full month where it would be posted on our website, inviting, if people wanted to come to our work session. And then we'd have a series of 4 work sessions where we will take, the code of conduct as well as the discipline plan apart and really work on it, and then bring those recommendations to the board in March. I don't have a date yet because we haven't set dates for next year, but we hopefully bring it the first board meeting in March, work session. And then in April, May, we'd have a final draft. Of course, we get feedback from the board in March, make those changes from your direction, and then we'd bring it back in April, and then we'd put it on the board agenda for approval. So that will give us time. Right now, we're rushing at a rate of lightning, trying to make sure that we get everyone trained. So in June, this will give us an opportunity, because it would have been voted on. We'd be able to roll out our training. People would know what the training, because we have our stakeholders, we have to provide training for our students, our teachers, our administrators, our bus drivers, and really plan it out and make sure that we're training them based on those suggested changes. We are doing that this year, but it's pretty rushed. And then in August, we would train everybody. But that would give the team, my team, time to develop this training and be ready to go for August for next year. We are going to be ready in August. We have a timeline. The team has worked very hard to come up with a timeline to make sure we train all of our stakeholders. We're going to be working, making sure that our bus drivers have an opportunity to get trained, our teachers. We've already started with our administrators. They got trained, an overview of the suggested changes on last Tuesday at leadership. We did the elementary session of training on Tuesday at the elementary principal meeting. And then on August 7th and 8th, we will have an opportunity to train our deans as well as our assistant principals, any other principals that need to be trained on the changes to the code of conduct. And then we're working with Mr. Wilson to outline our training for our bus drivers. And some of the training, especially our teachers, will have voiceovers. We will not have face-to-face. They'll be face-to-face with their principal, but we'll have a voiceover to make sure we're hearing the same message.
That's good.
So that's my recommendation.
Thank you so much. Now, I asked everybody if they could bring their twos. Does everybody have theirs? I have mine. Do you guys have yours? Do you have yours? Ms. Jenkins, did you bring yours? Okay. I think we could all, if everybody can say who theirs are, because what I'd like to do is I have,
I thought,
go ahead.
well, I thought you wanted to buy 8-1, and probably in an email, or we just
You
gonna say
could,
no?
if you didn't have it now, it was a suggestion. I just wanted to get my names out and get them done, that's
We'll
all.
need to send contact
Yes,
information.
Yeah,
we'll email
right.
you over
Yes.
the
Can
answer, but yeah.
How about the
Can I
dates of these? I mean, the times, are the meetings gonna be in the evenings?
So right here,
From
here you
fi-
go, I'm sorry.
But it doesn't have time of day.
Oh, yeah.
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Yes.
Five-
5 to 7.
Oh, thank you.
Got it.
It's fundamental.
We really want to accommodate, people that have a
Community.
job in the daytime.
Sure.
Can I make a suggestion, though? So can we just go ahead and email these to Ms. Dampier? Not that it won't be public knowledge, but just for the sake of, we don't need to publicize their names right now. I mean, that's just my opinion.
I
It's
was-
not necessary.
And I appreciate that. The reason that I asked was I asked like 6 people and said, would you guys sit based upon what my other board members do? So meaning that I was willing to, because I always figure I'm the last person to go, that depending on what background each one of you had chosen, that I would choose one of mine based on that to fill, right? So they all knew that I had asked them to do that. I can give the 2 names. My only fear is that we end up with like 5 of the same, and I just think that it would be nice to have a component
I don't
from the
mind giving my
community.
names.
I don't mind doing
The only
mine
thing
either,
is, like, I could give you my 2 names, but you won't know anything about them except for their names.
Yeah.
but I didn't know if, so, and
Would
I
you like me to
apologize.
describe their political
That's
background and how tall
Not
they
their
are?
political background, but like if you're a coach,
I
if you're a
understand.
former coach, if you're a former PTO, if you're a former law enforcement, if you're a former, you know what I mean? Like those kind of things, that's
Yeah.
all, like a former administrator, like I thought
Yeah,
that
we
that
can
would be.
talk about what they bring to the table or
Yeah.
whatever, what viewpoint.
If you guys don't have to say their names, but if you can say who it is that you guys are thinking about, then I can at
Their
least.
perspective.
That's it.
Yeah.
If you guys can do something
Yeah.
like that, that would help.
I don't mind going first. I have a school psychologist and a clinical social worker.
Psychologist and a social worker? Great. All right.
I have one who is a secondary parent, but also works as a dean's clerk in one of our high schools, and the other one is a elementary school parent.
All right.
My 2 are middle school teachers.
All right.
Both parents, I have one parent, she's a business owner, and it has an elementary and a high school students, and the other one is also a parent of a choice school
Okay.
students here in town.
All right. So then what I have, I guess one of the, you guys are going to laugh when I tell you, when you find out who it is, but I have a coach that I'll put in because we don't have anybody on here that's a coach. And then I have a former law enforcement that I'll put on there. And then those 2 should fill in parents, law enforcement. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins, for psychologists and social workers. I had those on. Dean's clerk, that's great. Business owners, I think this is a good committee. I think we can be proud of these individuals. I will send you their contact information.
And I'll email them to you.
You have a
Yeah.
question, Ms. Pam?
Yes, I wanted to also, we want student voice, that's important.
Yeah, I
So
was
we're
gonna
going to
ask,
have,
can
We had
does
that-
choice be a student or no?
We worked out.
so
Okay.
Explain
we,
that.
the superintendent has a superintendent student advisory council, which consists of a plethora of students from our schools. So we will be getting their voice on some of the things as well. And we'll share that information as a part of our March, feedback session with the board. But yes, if you can send me the name, contact number, whether it's email, phone number, et cetera, and then we'll make contact.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, first of all, my thanks, Ms. Dampier, because I don't know if you guys have had a one-on-one with her yet, but I had finally got that on my list, and we had a great meeting, and then I talked with you on the phone earlier this week, too. And just the amount of thought you've put into this process and refining it for us, and especially moving it earlier. But then one of the things that you had talked about was, because student voice will only be one student, right? And it's only going to be, in addition to the teacher, it sounds like we've already got some staff on here. Like I have a 10-10 person, but she's not in, you know, she's my representative. So, you know, you had talked about going out to the students and doing those surveys so that even though we'll have the one person part of the work group, but they will have more opportunities for student voice to come back in that process throughout the year. And I think that is very appreciated. And also, honestly, we probably can do the same thing with teacher staff, and that may be already part of the plan.
Yes, we've gone out, and for student council, you know, we can, in the past, we could get that information where we can meet with student council representatives, and we'd organize that with the secondary schools to get that voice. And we can have that as a part of our feedback from, you know, the overall, like, secondary group, middle school, high school.
I think the whole process sounds like, I'm just really excited about the work to be done. And I think going with the work group is absolutely the right idea, too.
Yep. Anybody else want to say anything to Ms. Dampier about this? Okay. Thank you. Ms. Dampier, I did want to just say thank you. I sat with Ms. Dampier for, it must have been an hour after the superintendent summit to go through all of the concerns, to check them off, because we're kind of all over the place on the discipline piece. We have the audits, we have all of the data, we have all this stuff. So I sat down with her and walked through it, and I wanted to say thank you so much. She has in place, and you heard, all of the trainings that are going on for the discipline components right now. Like, they're learning about that now. I will tell you that we had, I think, 300 plus teachers inside the gym in Clear Lake, and they were cheering when I mentioned that we're giving the power back to them inside their classroom. We even had some that had come from other school districts that were working in other school districts, that now that we're cleaned that up are coming back. I was surprised by that. And the number of teachers in there, and that wasn't all of them that were there, that was incredible too. So your willingness to come get this under wraps and get it moving has been tremendous, all the way from the data to the trainings to everything else. It looks like, Dr. Rendell, did you have something you wanted to say?
We just want to say that table over there has been really busy. That's her team
Yeah.
over there.
I'm sorry, I
They're the
keep
ones who've been
forgetting
doing
that
all this
table.
work.
Yeah.
So,
You guys, thank you so
All
much.
night.
All right, Ms. Dampier, thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, you guys, here it comes. You guys ready?
Oh, man, I was hoping
We have 1 hour for the 5,000.
Oh, yeah.
You guys need a potty break? All right, we're going to take a 5-minute potty break. Welcome back, everybody. Just wanted to get moving on our new 5,000 policies, just so everybody understands we're going through so that we can be in compliance with the state. And you guys are consistently joking around about not wanting to do them. I am 100% with you. This is not something that I like enjoy secretly and make punishing you to do it. But we all need to take it serious, and I appreciate your guys' willingness to move forward. So the first one that we have, Mr. Gibbs has sent us all of the updated policies for Neola. And if you guys can, open up his email. He just sent it, and then we can take a look at it. So the first one that we have is 5111.01, homeless students. In looking at it, it seemed pretty close to the Neola component.
I'll be the date person, because that's what I was, one of the things I was looking at. So Neola's date is 22, and ours was updated in 21. So
Right.
I didn't find what was different. I will admit that to you.
I think in a lot of these, as we're moving forward, if nobody has a problem and we can't see it, we just say, hey, Paul, can you go ahead and review it for any changes to Neola and then bring that back to us? Does that make sense to
Yeah.
everybody? Okay. So Paul, I didn't see many changes. So if you can, take a look at the Neola template, and if there's any changes to 511101, it'd be greatly appreciated. Is that okay? All right. The next one is 5111.02, and that is the educational opportunity for military children.
So we revised ours after theirs, but there's a link on this one, and it's wrong. So it says in the very first sentence that it'll be entitled to the services afforded by the Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children. And that's hyperlinked, but if you click on that, it
It's
goes
an arrow.
to nowhere. So can we just, that's not even like a technical change, right? We just need to fix the link.
Yeah, it may not exist anymore, I don't know.
Okay, but that compact still exists, right?
I'll double check.
Okay. I was thinking it.
Don't you know?
It's still referenced in Neola, so I'm assuming it does.
Right, right. We should define where.
Yeah,
it
they
is.
just don't have a link in Neola. Oh, wait, yeah, they do.
And there's been
Let's
some
see if theirs
statutory
works.
changes since 2010.
Theirs gets the same one, so yeah, it comes up as an error, so I don't know that
So we don't need that.
the link works
Right.
anymore.
But we don't have any
so.
change, I mean, they don't have any updates in policy, so there hasn't necessarily been ability to change it for us. But we need to
There's-
figure out where that.
So just so you guys know, if you go to the statutes, the interstate compact for military children is actually inside of 1000.36.
Okay.
And inside of it, it goes through a very explicit amount of directions. I don't know if just for our military families, if you guys wanted to add that to our policy. It is pretty lengthy, but it also may send a message that for families that are coming in.
I don't want to, I know we did that for our bylaws, but I don't want to start adding full statutes to every policy. I did find the interstate compact link on the Department of Defense Education Activity. So it's, there's nothing on it, actually.
I mean,
But, I think we just need to get a better link.
it is pretty in-depth, that entire thing. I feel if you guys have a chance,
Give me a second, sorry.
go
I'm just
to
trying
go to Florida statute 1000.36.
You can click on the link on the policies
does,
and it
goes
pops
to
up,
it.
yeah.
It does, that
Mine
one.
doesn't open up when I click the link, just,
The 10036?
Just type in Florida statutes.
that's what I just did, so,
Okay.
I went the good old fashioned way.
Okay, here it is. Amended 2012. There's a military1source.mil website that has a link to it, and it's like a PDF, but we always want it to be, so it is updated. I think the idea of having a hot link, that's not the right word, that's a sausage. What do you call it? What do you call it, Russell Cheatham, when you have a link? Not a hot link. What do you call it?
I think it's just active.
What? No, when you have a good, like,
Has a broken
a link.
Hyperlink.
Thank you, not a hot link.
Is this why we have a problem with social media? Because we don't even know what a hyperlink is?
48 years old, I am not cool enough to know the terms.
So,
All right, anyway, that was my only problem with this policy, was that we had a bad link.
so if you guys take a look at okay.
I like section 1 of this, I think that should be at the bare minimum in there. Sorry, mine's. All right, do you guys have the Florida statute pulled up or no? because our policy does not,
Right.
it doesn't cover all of it.
And facilitating the qualification eligibility for enrollment in educational programs, participation in, it kind of is and it was just updated in '22. So, and our policy hasn't been updated in a little while. If we're gonna be very strong on this on our, I don't know, I'm always about putting all this stuff in there just so that people can read. But if you wanted to put the first section and then say, please go to this article or the Florida statute for the rest of it, then I'm okay with that too. I just think that there needs to be something in there that says there's a lot more to this. Sorry. It's very good.
It is a great Florida statute. I think, a lot of it is definitions. So if you're looking at the Florida statute, so you have the whole section 2 is definitions, which I don't think we really need to necessarily implement that in the policy.
If you get 3, 4, 5, 6, they're all pretty good. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, rulemaking functions. Yeah, I mean, like, look, we can put the beginning section of it and just say, Paul, is that legal? Or we can just add that Article 1 and then say, please see the rest of the statute for more information.
Or as also defined in Florida statute.
We can put a note on there saying excerpted, and then see the rest of it and link to it.
Question, Paul, when we have on the legal section of Neola where it's already tying in that Florida statute, I'm guessing that's kind of a bit of a,
Redundancy?
well, I guess, I mean, so when we put that in the policy under legal, then that's us saying
Still legal.
everything that's there, we also
Yeah.
are.
It's
I
saying
mean-
that's our authority.
It's incorporated into the policy already, so.
The only problem that we have is that when families go, they just see that link and they don't know, they assume that that's what it is. So if there's an opportunity for us to let them know that there's more to take a look at that we honor, that might be something that,
Well, the pushback on this one is if a family is a military family, they're not necessarily going to our policies to see what we're offering. They are going to know by federal law, we are required to do these things by these and state law. So they're going to be aware of their military rights as a military family. So when we start, I understand some of why we put it, even though I disagree with it, putting our bylaws, but if we're going to start putting whole sections of statute, let's write our, there's a reason why Neola has the policies the way they do. And they're not always perfect. We certainly have plenty that have varied. But we want to take a strong stance on what we do for our military families. I don't think this policy is necessarily the statement that it might be thought of as doing. We're going to do all these things, but I just wanted us to get an accurate link because that is going to be the document that tells them, spells out procedurally even, more than just policy. What is policy? What's procedure?
Can I ask an aesthetic recommendation? For the legal sections, can we make them blue and underline so that like the general public realizes that it's even a link in the first place?
That may be a board docs question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that's silly, but I can
Right.
see
If you
why
don't
you would think
cover-
nobody would go and look at that as a link when
Mine's
you're just
blue.
looking. Oh, mine's not.
And underlined.
Oh, mine's not.
What browser are you using?
Yeah.
I don't know, mine was blue and underlined.
Okay, never mind then, but mine's not.
What browser? I mean, seriously, what browser
Yeah.
are you using?
Interesting. Because seriously, I understand your concern. If people just see a bunch of numbers on the bottom, it doesn't mean anything to them.
Well, and here, the only reason I'm saying I think we should at least incorporate Article 1 of what is in there is because we have 3 of the things that are already in Article 1, but not the others. So I'm not sure why we would only have part of it and not the others. If that makes sense.
what she's saying is that ABC is in there, but the rest of it's not. So maybe what we do is just add the A, B, C, D, E, F, and then add it inside there, and then see more, please go to this statute. That sounds good to me. Good?
Yeah.
That's a compromise, I just want you to know, Ms. Campbell, because we did not put the other, 13 in there, so are you good there?
That's a compromise.
All right, Ms. Jenkins, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I don't care.
With a
It's
do-
weird to me that there's only a piece of it.
With a little note down at the bottom, Paul, that says, please refer to the rest of the statute.
All right.
You're awesome. Okay. Next up is, let me make sure of this.
We don't have
I think
03, but Neola does.
Yeah, we don't have the next template.
5112? Oh, we don't have children and youth in foster. We have that somewhere else, though.
No, I actually looked in our policy manual. You can, it's searchable just for the word foster, and we have a few things that have foster in it.
That's under maybe programs.
But I didn't see anything, stop. I didn't see anything that was a foster policy. We may have some of it incorporated in other things, but, yeah.
This again is, just so everybody knows, this again in our policy that does not exist. The Neola one was from 2017. So, last modified in '23.
That's just when they printed them.
Right.
It's the copyright date is which one, like.
I,
yeah.
there's so much to the foster care and everything else that what I would like to do is just ask if staff would take a look at this, make some changes to it and bring it back, because there's no way that we would be able to look at it and give us their idea of
Yeah.
if this is something that they want to pursue.
Yeah.
Because there might be a reason why we didn't, it might be somewhere else, and I think that we shouldn't be making this decision.
And this seems to be based off of simply federal law,
Yep.
so.
So if you guys are okay
I
with,
think it would be important to have a foster
I agree.
policy.
I agree, I think, but I think if, Paul, if you can bring it to staff and then bring it back with what their concerns are,
Right.
should be good.
I know
Good.
we're doing these things. And our staff does good work for our students in
Yep,
transition,
they
our
are.
foster families and things like that, but just to highlight it and to support.
Okay, so that was 5111.03. Next one is 5112, entrance requirements. Again, this is one of those ones that's pretty lengthy.
And we
And,
just revised this in '21, and Neola doesn't have anything since then.
yeah, so if anything, Paul, if you can just have staff review it and just say, hey, we're good to go, if there's any changes they want to make, and just bring it back to us. Okay, next one is 5113, school of choice options provided by federal law. This is from 2018. We do not have this inside of our policies. It talks about the victims of violent crimes on school property and these kind of things. Is this something that you guys want staff to review?
I feel like,
I've seen
so
it.
because of the Hope,
The Hope Scholarship.
Hope Scholarship, so I wonder if this is even, not necessarily out of date, because it says by federal law, but then it references state law. I guess state law is what defines what is a persistently dangerous school, but this seems like this one is redundant to the one that we just looked at recently about
Right.
the Hope Scholarship.
Okay, I agree with you. Hope Scholarship's the only opportunity they have to transfer because of it. So if you guys, and that's a pretty broad definition. If you guys are okay with that, then
I
we
would
should
leave
pause
that
on
in
this one.
And not incorporate this one.
Right, so I'm okay. Are you okay with not incorporating this one because of the Hope Scholarship?
Yeah, because this one is requiring the superintendent to come up with an administrative procedure specific to it as well, so it's a whole nother.
See that, Dr. Rendell? We're looking out for you over here.
Appreciate it.
The next one up is non-immigrant students and foreign exchange programs.
We just call it foreign students.
Foreign students, it's 5114. The title on Neola is a little bit different. This was Neola was 2014.
Yeah.
Ours has no date. It says adopted 2002. I've had, just so everybody understands, in this thing right here, I've had a series of problems, and where a foreign student literally lands inside of, say, I'm not going to, Raymer's going to get upset, but say Merritt Island. And then what ends up happening is they live in the area, and then they go to apply to go to school, and the principal can say no. And it's happened, because I've had some of that happen, right? And then, but they're literally legally zoned in that school. And it's just this odd thing that begins to happen. And if you read in here, it says, foreign exchange students may be enrolled on space available, principal approval basis, and a tuition fee is not required. That's a whole nother issue. When I was reading this, we make them pay a tuition fee to offset the K through 12.
Because we don't get anything from
Right.
we don't get anything from the FEFP for those students.
Right, but there's a value that they bring to, do you see what I mean? Like here's my thing, do we really care about having, I think it was like a 200, what was it? The fee was very low, but it's not even stated in here, when I think think I looked at it, it was like $250 or something. Anyways, so the fee, do we need it? The other component is that I think if the student sits inside the zone, we don't get a ton of these. It's like 1, 2, 3, like it's not gonna outweigh like the whole foreign country's not gonna move into a school zone and create it. Well, all right, let's have that discussion. I mean, seriously, like this is, when I was doing it, it was pre-COVID, pre-hurricanes from Puerto Rico, you know what I mean? And some of those have seen influxes of students coming in. So let's talk about it then.
So
I have
just,
an opinion on this.
okay.
Oh, Sarah, you go first.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I agree with you, Mr. Susan. It's kind of weird because we have families in Brevard who offer to take in foreign exchange students, but then they can't send that student to their community school, which they participate in, pay taxes towards in their mind. I get that it goes throughout the entire district, don't get me wrong. But they provide to. And or their own children go to, and so they're sending their children to that school, but then they have to go take the foreign exchange student to another school, which is kind of strange. And the reason this was brought to my attention is when I spent time at Cocoa High School, weirdly enough, their kicker last year was a Japanese foreign exchange student, but that family actually resided in Vieira. And so they had to transport that student every single day to Cocoa. And I don't know what school denied them, but so it's kind of odd, and it isn't a huge number, so it is weird to me that we allow them to be
Okay.
unaccepted.
So I remembered a couple of emails passing in our midst recently, and one of them is recently from Dr. Sullivan in March. But the one from 4 years ago from Chris Moore, just doing a quick search, was that, well, let me just do this is update. So in March, Dr. Sullivan sent us an answer to a question, just kind of some definitions, and those J visas, which is the one that there's not a fee required. Those are the most familiar ones that we do cultural exchange. They spend 11th grade year with the host family. All of our high schools are able to work with them. And, but she was recommending at that time that we change this policy because the current policy gives principals autonomy to deny a student. She said, we recommend that J visa students be allowed to attend the school they are districted to based on their host family because it's been an issue in the past. So I think that's what you're talking about. Then F visas, they're paying to get an education in the United States. The email that was sent to us was referencing our limitations on F visa students.
Yep.
We currently have them. There are certain, if I'm understanding this, they have to. There's something that the school has to do. Right now, we're serving those at Heritage. There is significant responsibility, she said, to the school contact for F visas to include personal responsibility of each student and collaboration with ICE and the State Department. There are ongoing costs and a significant amount of additional responsibilities for the school. There's a link, she sent us a link. This was back on March 29th if you want to go back and look. But then there's a counselor at Heritage who manages all those students. And so because that is a more involved process, that's why there is the fee. The initial application cost is $3,500, and then renewal every 3 years is $1,250. So everything's online and there's documentation and all that, and it requires a school visit from SEVP, which I don't know what that stands for. It's probably up in the email, but anyway. So the F visas with the fee. That's not the normal exchange students we get all the time. This is more involved, and the school has a lot of responsibilities in addition to us not getting funding for them. So it sounds like if we want to make the change, I would absolutely support that, making it, easier so that, unless they're completely at capacity, but I don't know that it would make that much difference. But it sounds like we really can't change that F process because all of our schools can't handle that process.
I would
for the F
almost
visa.
wonder, Dr. Rendell, being like, say somebody moves to Titusville, and then all of a sudden they have to find out they have to drive their kid to Heritage, like, because I remember this email, and thank you so much for bringing it up. That classification's weird. Do you know anything in this area?
Yeah, right now, my recollection is that Heritage was the only school cleared to accept those students. So, yeah, you could live in Mims, and if you want to enroll in public school, high school, Heritage would be the only school.
Wonder if there's a.
For the F visa.
Yeah, for the F visa. And I don't know how many, like the visas that we receive from like Rotary and stuff like that are not the F visas. They're not. They're the other ones. So,
J1 visa is usually your exchange student. And 4 years at Cocoa Beach, one conversation about a possible student moving into our area with an F visa. And once they learned that they weren't going to be able to go to Cocoa Beach, they decided not to come to Brevard at all. Not
Wow.
because of Cocoa Beach, but because they didn't want to have to drive from Cocoa Beach to Heritage. Right.
so I think I like the idea of not giving just allowing them to attend the school that they're in, right? And then I also like the idea, like Dr. Rendell said, just have them, like you were saying, keep that same F visa component, but then turn around and in the event that we get 10 of them up in Titusville for some unknown reason that we didn't know, then we would look at options to try to qualify that schools up there. That's all.
I'm going to forward this email back to the board and then also include Dr. Rendell, and I'll include Mr. Raymer as well. But at the bottom, I just was looking through this just for some data. Heritage hosted 46 F1 visa students this year. And she did recommend at the time, huh?
There's like one or two.
Yeah.
No, but
remember her
that's
saying that,
that's
Mary.
just
Okay,
completely
we got an
different
issue.
than
Right, right.
than the traditional foreign exchange.
Right, because they can stay multiple years.
Yeah, that's totally different.
They're staying multiple years. So she did recommend at the time that we offer the opportunity to other high schools, but let it be their choice because it is so involved. And she listed, and I'll forward it to you so you can read it again. She listed like all the steps they have to take and all the things they have to do because it's such a big responsibility. So if there's a school that wants to take it on that's more central or north, you know, I mean, they can look at it. But I'll forward it right now back to the board and to Dr. Rendell and to Mr. Raymer so they can take a look at it.
So, and the bottom of this email too for the F visas says that the school is assigned an ICE agent. So like this has a severe federal, sorry, my screen's freaking out.
Right.
Federal rigorous process. And then, sorry, Ms. Campbell, you might have said this already, but Dr. Sullivan did recommend in here that we do change the J visa.
Yeah. So let's at least do that today, or we're going to talk about.
So I think sending the policy back to you, Dr. Rendell, with the review of removing the fee for J visas and the requirement that the principal's allowed to say no or something just to be able to host school. And then if there's, just for me, before it comes back, I don't know if there's a way that we can pull those F1 visa addresses to see where they're at. And even, I'll reach out and talk to a couple of them and just say, hey, like, is there a hardship? Because maybe they can do virtual school through Heritage, even though they're living in Titusville. There might be some options, you know what I mean? So if we can just find out the addresses and see if there's a large amount at another location or something, that's all.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. Okay. Everybody feel comfortable with that direction? Paul, did you get it?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we're moving along
Oh,
here.
hang
T-minus
on.
30 minutes.
Hang on before we
Uh-oh.
go there.
Uh-oh.
So I'm probably going to say this several times today as we go through 5,000s. There are several of these policies, not just several, many, that say the superintendent will create administrative procedures, and I'm going to bring up every single one that we didn't have an administrative procedure for. And we may have that administrative procedure somewhere, but it's not attached to this policy. And if I read the policy, which very few people do, but if I'm one of those people reading the policy and it says, then I'm going to go over to the administrative procedures, even if I'm one of our staff, and I want it there. So.
It should be another hyperlink.
It should be hyperlinked, yeah.
But I'm just saying there's not one. I mean, you don't even have to hyperlink. You can go to the drop down and change administrative procedures. I went through how many do we have administrative procedures for? And there's a bunch that we don't have. And we may have those procedures somewhere, but I think they need to be, even if it's a redundancy, we need to put it on the same, like administrative procedure 5114.
Yep.
So here, this is one of the ones that we're going to need an administrative procedure for.
Okay.
It's 5114.
I think that's a great point, Ms. Campbell. All right, moving on to 5120, assignment within the district. If you look at the options that are there, some of them fall into what we have, but again, this is junior reserve officers, waiver of attendances. What I would like to do in this case is send this for recommendation to Dr. Rendell and staff and ask them to come back. There's a series of Florida statutes to review. I don't think this is an area that our expertise is, so I would recommend, hey guys, if you want to take a look at it, bring it back to us, and then we can take a look at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, when we revised it, they haven't, Neola hasn't had any updates, but I guess we and the staff made a choice not to include some of these parts in
Yep.
here.
Yep. That's why they did it on the 7/9/19. So we haven't reviewed it in 4 years, but I think there's been some changes. If we can just give it to staff to take a look at and bring it back to us, that would be the best bet. You guys good with that?
Yep.
Ms. Campbell, Ms. Jenkins, we're okay there? Yep. Okay. All right, 5120, controlled open enrollment.
Wasn't that the one we were just?
No, we're on five.
No,
one, two,
ma'am.
one. 512.
We're on 5121 right now. We were on 5120.
Same name,
Yep.
This is one that was in, the file, that statute that that Neola sent an update.
Yeah, and it is one of the most cumbersome policies we've ever seen.
There's
so-
been change in state statute or what, that we're gonna have to update this one.
So what I would say is if we can give this to Dr. Rendell and staff, and have it, bring it back.
Even though we just updated it in March.
I know, I know. Are we good?
Yeah.
Well, I highlight, there's like.
Well, this area right here is a
There's
lot
a
of
handful.
staff's direction. Okay,
That policy got extremely long.
yep, that's what I was saying. Are we okay with allowing staff to review and bring it back to us with best intentions?
Yes.
Okay, next up, 5130, withdrawal from school. All right. You guys, this is, again, I don't know the ramifications of making any changes in here. I would recommend that staff takes a look at this and brings it back to us with their best recommendations. If that's okay with you guys? We
Paragraph,
revised ours in
paragraph
2014.
2. Yeah, and Neola hasn't had it, okay, I'm just questioning. 5,000 is a boatload of policies, and everything, even when Neola hasn't had an update, then you have so far suggested just about every time, do we want staff to go look? I feel like they might have be coming to us if there's something, if Neola doesn't have an update, so we haven't had, I just be careful with like sending, if I don't want to send them 200 policies, if Neola doesn't have any changes and we don't have any changes, why are we asking them to do extra work?
I would say that is 100% correct. If our direction from the board is that Neola doesn't have any changes, and we realize that if we make any changes, it's going to have some pretty big significant components, I'm okay with staff checking it just like that. And that's what I thought the direction was. If you see it and there's not a Neola change, just bring back what we have. If there is a small Neola change, add it and bring it back. But it's up
Okay.
to them and their direction.
Okay.
Absolutely. I
But-
think it's a-
But this one clearly didn't have a
Right.
change. is
I'm
what
gonna say,
you're just saying. We don't need
Neola's
to send
copyright
this
is
one.
2007, we revised it in 2014.
no change.
So unless we see something we want to change, I don't know why we need to go back
I would
there.
love to just have staff review. Is it 100% word for word? And are there any new laws or anything?
I
It's
just
not
had
bad to
two.
have them just eyeball it.
Right, well, I just feel like they probably are, maybe I'm assuming wrong, they're probably looking, each of them, at their policies that are in their division, that are under their supervision, but I did have two quick things on this, on the paragraph 2, just a question.
Okay.
It talked about, that, the student must complete a survey, this is when they withdraw, they must complete a survey in a format prescribed by the Department of Education to provide data on his or her reasons for terminating enrollment and actions taken by the district to keep students enrolled. And now that I say that, I have a vague memory of another email somewhere from Dr. Sullivan that described, or maybe from Chris Moore in the past, of how we do that, but what is the survey coming from the DOE? They have a survey that we give students when they're dropping out?
We do, but oftentimes they don't complete the survey.
Okay, so we have to provide it, but
Yep.
if they're gone, they're gone. And then, this is another one that doesn't have an administrative procedure. That says it will.
Okay.
I think it's pretty safe to say that Dr. Rendell's going to look at all of them, and any ones that don't have the administrative procedures, he'll just add them.
I'm going to say it every time.
Okay.
We just did the next
Yeah, I think he would
one.
appreciate the highlight, so he
that's
doesn't
good.
have to search.
Yeah, I'll take the help.
All right. The next one, 5136, as Ms. Wright just said, we just redid that one, so we're,
But I hate to tell you, but that was one of the ones in the revisions from Neola. So if statute
Yeah, 'cause
changed
statute
it, we
changed it,
may
yep.
have to take a look at it again.
well, staff will bring that back to us, right? Okay. Next one is 5136.01.
We don't have this one.
Right. It's technology, resources, and other electronic equipment. Talks about basically, and I think we have this somewhere else, like, if you have any of these items, here's how it is, you know what I mean? Like, I think registration of items, we already have somewhere in policy. Do we have it? We're good?
We do.
You've got it, okay. So, so I have a feeling that we do not need this policy, and we can save Russell Cheatham from reviewing it. Are you guys okay with that?
Yes.
We're okay?
I just want you to
Looking out for you,
recognize
Russ.
it says boom boxes.
Well, I may want to add that.
Might
Wait
wanna
a
add that in
minute.
there, but I mean, just.
From 2017, I thought, people always say I'm old when I say boombox.
Pagers?
Hey, the vinyl
Beepers?
records are coming back.
It's a thing.
I mean, you guys don't have
Eight
boom
track.
Yeah, you don't use yours?
Yeah.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
520.
We let kids bring their 8-track.
Let's see here,
This is
520.
attendance.
We just, okay, but this is another one that was in the Neola updates from legislation.
So,
Again, all those that I highlight them all, so I'm going to mention it each time, but I didn't go through and see
well, I
what the Neola
appreciate it
updates
too.
were.
So, Mr. Gibbs, when Ms. Campbell says that these are Neola updates, can you pull those for the most recent Neola updates and then?
They've already been sent out to staff.
Okay.
So
So
they've all,
they're good, there's a process, you got it
Yeah,
under there.
whenever
Okay.
we get a Neola update package, we send it out to all of the cabinet, and they distribute it to their staff for review.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for that, Ms. Campbell. All right, so that was 5200, right? Next one is, let's see here, I got 5215 on the book, and then 5215, missing and absent children.
This hasn't, they haven't have an update since 2002 either, but we also, it's another one that we don't have an administrative procedure.
All right, so since there's no chance, we can just stamp that we approved, we reviewed it, and add the administrative procedures.
What is the administrative procedure for this? though? I mean,
It's
that's-
supposed to be about, it's in the second paragraph, to what we do if a student doesn't, and again, we have a procedure, I'm pretty sure, it's just not attached to this policy. What we do if a student shows up and they don't have the records we need for entrance.
Okay.
We
It has
good?
to do with student safety and things like that.
All right. So we're okay with adding the administrative procedure, there was no change, so we don't even
Yeah,
need to
we don't
send
need
that
to
to
change the
staff.
policy.
Okay?
Right.
All right, next one up is 5223, absences for religious instruction. Let me see, when I was looking at this, I forget.
They don't have any updates since 2010.
It's the same.
I want to ask a question, just out of curiosity for this,
Yeah,
so.
this is kind of one of those topics.
I know, and honestly, because I didn't know this was even a thing, but when it comes to religious instruction, so if I'm reading this policy correctly, if a student were to go on a foreign mission trip of some sort, would that qualify as religious instruction depending on, or is that?
I don't think so. I think I'm going to just,
No.
Add it?
I think this is one of those things of like, you can, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Rendell, or like if a student were going to Hebrew school,
Yep.
and like the first period of the day, so instead of first period, they go to Hebrew school
Okay.
class, and then they come in,
Then
later,
they-
and that's,
Okay,
right.
Yeah.
all
As
right.
long as they're on track with their credits and everything. Maybe you probably have experienced this, so,
Yeah, when I was teaching at Satellite High School years ago, actually, we had several Jewish students who would leave campus for part of the day and go down to the temple and then come back. And so, excused absence.
All right.
And you guys want to do
but
a,
it's like, it's not a mission trip type thing. It's like a
Right.
throughout the year
I got you,
kind of thing.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, like, I don't know if the Catholic churches here do it during the school day, but, I mean, growing up, you would leave early on a Wednesday and you go to CCD class.
Yep.
And miss an hour of school.
and that's all okay under our current statute, or our current policy. Do you guys, did I hear somebody say they wanted to add mission trip kind of stuff?
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, I guess that would fall under,
That's not instruction.
it's not, yeah, it would fall under
Oh.
absences, I think, or something, it wouldn't be here. 'Cause-
Okay. Well, it looks like we've got a pretty solid, if you can just make sure that there's nothing that needs to be added, but it looks pretty solid there, Paul.
Yeah, it looks the same.
All right, if it's the same, we don't need to review it. Let's move on to 5225, absences for religious holidays.
Neola had an update since Neola has had an update since we revised this policy in 2021. And it may be that
there's a
they
whole
add,
lot.
I'm looking,
Yeah.
they may have added some.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Looks like their list is longer. Oh, they did it by month.
They did, yeah, which
Yeah,
I
they
actually
just-
like this format a lot better.
Yeah, they broke it out by
Ours is broken out by,
time of year.
well,
Here's our answer to our question earlier today.
Yep.
yeah,
There's a lot.
yeah.
Oh, look. Okay, I'm not gonna say it. I was like, there's some really interesting.
Dolly Bull
The
Run.
only thing is,
Whoa.
here's the only thing about doing it this way, is there are some, and I'll give you, for example, Ramadan and Easter, that move, and they actually
Right.
put Palm Sunday on a specific date. I don't want to change this policy
Oh.
every year.
Yeah, that is
So it might be maybe better to keep we might need to add some of these, but like some of these, I don't know about some of the other ones, but some of these move depending on, because they're on a lunar calendar and not, or it's always on a certain day of the week. So I don't
I mean, we could just make sure that the holidays themselves are listed. You don't have to put the dates.
yeah.
You could list
That's
it
how the policy became.
how we're doing it
That's how we wrote
currently.
it. Yeah, the dates
Yep.
don't make any sense. They change every year.
Yeah.
I was born on.
So we just need to make sure that that we have them all covered here based on what Neola's is.
I just compare the list.
Compare,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're good? Okay, so the direction is to take the current ones that may not be listed and add them to them based on religion. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Paul, is that good for you?
Yep.
All right. Moving on, we have 5230, late arrival and early dismissal.
Yeah, Neola hasn't had any changes.
Okay? So I'm okay if you guys are okay with moving on with this one and just time stamping it. Good. All right, health services, 5310.
Wait.
Okay, I'm sorry. Or 5310, sorry. We were on 5230, now we're on 5310.
Oh, wait,
you okay?
but did we talk about 5230?
We said it was exactly the same.
It's exactly the same.
That's what it
Okay, because they had an update in 2005. I did not look at every single thing. It's the same.
I was
Okay.
told it's exactly the same.
Okay, gotcha.
Time stamp it, and we're moving on. All right, 5310, health services.
Neola did their update since we did ours.
Just gotta be careful
In
here.
2020.
We gotta be careful in here because we have some of those, who we play for policies, you know what I mean? There's some of the outside-the-box screenings that we have.
Yeah, I would like to, this is more of a procedural than a policy, but a common thing that I get from multiple parents, and I'm sure you guys have all heard it, is how upset they are that their child is given the letter after the health screening is done, that might say that they're overweight. It gets given directly to the kids see them, and it impacts them greatly. So when our kids' BMI is being measured, when a parent opts for that to be done, I am just asking, I know this is probably a huge undertaking, but I think those letters should be mailed directly to the parents. I don't think they should be transported through the child. In the event that there is something there, to alert a child to it and cause an issue, whether that be scoliosis or vision or whatever the case is, I think it's better to go directly to the parents to contact them. So, and again, that's a procedure, not really a policy. Has
Yeah.
anybody complained to you guys about this, or is this just me that's got
Well, I've experienced it in my own
Yeah,
family.
I've heard
It's-
about it. I
It's
just don't-
in the.
Are we forced to do that?
It's a Department of Health thing, but the communication comes from us.
Yeah,
It
I
is
think
in
it's
an
another one of the
envelope.
things that it's a Department of Health, I think the letter even is from the Department of Health, but we're kind of tasked with distributing it,
Yeah.
you know? I think we can explore mailing them, but we can also explore maybe emailing them, you know, so
Yeah,
we'll look at
digital.
a way to do it rather than hand it to the student.
I think handing it to the student is damaging. I have
Yeah.
heard multiple times
Yeah.
about
And you
that.
never know if it's actually gonna get home. Those kids
Well,
will
that's what I'm
lose that.
saying. I'll talk to Russell, give him another thing to do, and see if we can't just email the letter.
Well, we took away that policy, so that's a good trade.
Well,
The
we
one
have
we didn't do.
Focus, I mean, we have Focus, we can send
Right, using
communication
Focus,
through
right.
parents, so it wouldn't even be a change, it's just, you know.
Just be a notification.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a change to the policy. I think that's just a matter of
Right,
handling
that's
it
what I said.
different.
It's more procedure
Yeah, yeah.
than anything. So I just wanted to put that out there though, so we.
I thought we weren't doing BMI anymore. I know that's not the only thing we're talking about, but
It's one of the ones that they do a couple of
Yeah, like
years.
third grade, sixth grade.
Sixth
seventh
grade, yep.
I thought
times,
they
yeah.
like X-nayed BMI total. But
No, they don't. And, yeah.
Great point.
For that exact reason.
Dr.
Yeah.
Rendell, can you tell us the tests for communicable diseases? Can you tell me what that is? What
I
we're doing there?
cannot.
Okay,
Where-
because that's where I was
which paragraph are you
confused.
looking
I was like,
It's letter C on this.
um,
The district may provide or request
that's a hot button
parents.
issue right there to open up. Okay.
It says
I've
it
just never
may
heard of us
provide.
Wait, what number?
demanding a
Not
test for
C.
communicable disease.
Well, it
Test for communicable.
Oh, you're
May
looking at ours,
May.
okay.
May.
Just,
Oh, sorry.
we may request.
We may request.
I don't know if I want to request that.
There are
don't know.
certain positive tests with the Department of Health where they are legally required to disclose information, and so that's what that means. So there would be scenarios where the parent would have to disclose that information. It's not, that one doesn't apply to us, to the parent.
And
Sorry, elaborate on that, because I don't really understand what you're saying, so give me an example.
I'm not going to give you an example.
I
But
need
there are certain communicable diseases that they must disclose if they are positive. They are required to do so. And so that's why it's saying that. The parents are, yes.
Okay. I think that's something that we can agree to ask questions offline about, make sure that our minds where they're at right now can. So anyways, we revised this in 2019, Neola revised this in 2005. I have a feeling that we're pretty close to being,
Wait, are you on the next one?
Neola's,
on
the
5.3.
last paragraph is new to Neola, and we do not have it.
right.
Oh, that's the 2020.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. I like adding that last one.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, that, I agree on that.
Yep. So if we can add that or come in line with the Neola template, and then if you can just ask staff if they want to add anything in there to let us know, okay? Are we okay with that? Move on? Here comes the next one. 5320, immunizations and health
Oh, I
examinations.
thought that's the one we were just looking at.
No.
Nope. Ms. Campbell, you okay?
But like,
I mean, I'd
we
say
were
that,
talking about
I'm
dates
saying
and,
it ahead of
yeah,
time.
yeah.
I'm like, hey, 5320.
Okay,
I
that's
don't
where
know.
you were saying 19. I'm like, no, we did it in 18. I'm skipping ahead, sorry.
days is 6 weeks.
Yes, yes. So, so Neola had an update in 2020 on this one as well, and we revised ours in 2018.
So, there's some specific things I'm looking for in here. It's got a lot in it. Do you guys want to, do you guys
They
want to?
did an update in 2020.
But there's a
or
lot
their
of stuff we
copyright's
may want to
2020.
get into in here. Do you guys want to pause on this one and add it to the next time we come back? Or do you guys feel comfortable with this, having staff bring back the updated version?
They probably need to take a look.
Yeah, it's definitely been updated, so it needs to
Yep.
be taken back.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we ask staff to update it and bring it back? And if there's any concerns that you may have upon reviewing it, that you get those to staff. Does that sound good? You okay with that, Paul?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go. Moving on, 5330. Just as a point of reference for time, we're at 9 minutes.
Yeah. So we updated this one in 2019 with the Neola update, which was the Florida statute required all districts to have a policy about the use of medical marijuana, and we went through quite an extensive process. And if you'll just notice, I just want to point out,
Where are you at? Sorry.
I'm on
5330.
5330. If you go down,
It's very interesting, the conversations we're
yeah, it
having
was
about
really
that.
interesting conversations. So you won't see this in Neola because, my understanding, this was before Paul, marijuana is still a federally,
Yep.
so they wouldn't give us a template, but the state required every school board in the state of Florida to have a policy on how you're going to allow it. So we have a very restrictive, I don't even know if anybody is using it at this point. At the time, only 6 people had
that's
asked or
not
3
good.
people had asked. But if you'll look down, there is actually a, what I call an escape clause in this section that says if at any time we're at risk of losing federal funding by allowing this, that that part of the policy immediately becomes null and void. I can't remember where it is, but,
See, yeah.
yeah. So it just, but we are required by the state to have some choice, some option. or they either have to take them off campus or we can allow in. We allow it in, but it's like very, very restrictive and they can't keep it on property and they have to literally come in and do it all. Our employees can't touch it.
Yep.
So I don't think there's not been any updates since then.
So with that, this is one of those that I think you should take some time and go through just to make sure, because it was a lively conversation that we had. So I would ask that you guys not glance at this. This is one of those big ones. So if we can have staff make any recommendations, and in the event that you see something, make that conversation with them, and then have them bring back the policy. if
And
that's
maybe
okay.
even find out, like, since we did this, if we've even had anybody use it. Because most of the students who are using are in such dire situation, they're either A, not attending school, or B, they're administering at home. Because it's pretty complicated.
I don't see this anywhere.
It's not in the Neola template now.
I'm like, you're dropping your chips and your salsa.
So my direction would be, take a look at it offline, see if there's any recommendations that you have. If you do, meet with staff, have staff bring it back with some of the changes that may be needed, and then we'll go from there. How's that sound? And in the meantime, take a look at if we have anybody that has had this need. Does that sound good? All right, we're at T-minus 6 minutes.
We're not getting through all this today.
I thought we could get through all of them. I was going to extend, no?
We heard you talking fast with those.
There's like 70 policies.
5330.01, self-administered medication and epinephrine use. Sorry, so
They
I'm a
did
little
have an
tired.
update in 2015, ours was 2014. I
Yep.
don't know what the difference is.
Again, if we can have staff take a look at this, I do not want to be making decisions on epinephrine.
There's definitely there's links to federal.
Yep.
On the bottom that we don't.
So if we can have staff take a look at it, you guys feel okay on that one? I don't think we're
Yeah.
going to mess with this one. All right,
The next one, we don't have 5330.03, but that's also about epinephrine. I'll say it for you.
yep. So if staff will take
Called
a,
an EpiPen.
I was like, yeah, if staff will take a look at this one too, I don't know if we need it. And
Well, I think we have to, because it falls under medication, so I think we do have to have it, and I
Yep.
think we need to allow the child to carry it with them, because honestly,
I think we do, but it's just not in this policy.
it's not
Right.
here. Oh, this is why I was like so lost. All right, I'm on the wrong policy. I was like, I don't see anything in here about
we
what you're
have-
talking about, and I was on the wrong page. I'm like, okay, gosh.
So you-
So 5330.01 is the self-administered medication.
Yeah, we have that.
And then this one is about
administration.
staff doing it if they're trained.
Yep.
It says that the student may carry and self-administer.
So I think if we can, just have staff take a look at that, and if your direction is, Ms. Wright, that you want to put this in, if they have any extreme red flags, then they can come back with it, or we just add it.
It's already here. We have it. We have 5330.01,
We do.
which
We're on-
covers it.
We're on 5330,
I know.
5330.03.
What's the difference? Are they the same? This
This-
one would just be
One
saying about the
is-
trained school personnel?
That's what
Right,
it is.
one is the
Right.
student
Administration.
administering to
And then, okay,
themselves,
so then
one's
I
the
don't think we need to
personnel.
have the school personnel if we have the student.
I don't know. I
Or
mean, I
can you
think,
have both? I mean,
well,
Sounds good to me.
I was trained as a not here, but I was trained as a teacher how to do it if I had to.
so if you have it, if we have a policy that says administer and by a trained school personnel, does that now mean the student can't administer it? If we have a policy that says they can't, can we do both?
Right, I don't think it's one or the other. I think that it's saying that if we're gonna have staff who are authorized, they have to have the training and know how to do it.
Right.
They can be granted permission. It's a whole lot of it. It's not, the kids can't do them. So if you have an EpiPen, they have we would know it because it's on your health card, right?
Right.
Right.
They have to keep it with them. But this is saying that a staff member, in
Could
certain
administer it.
circumstances, can, and I'm guessing we already have that. We just don't have a policy for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trained numerous times and know how to use it, so.
Okay.
So if we need to have a policy laid out, then we need to put this, because I just like, we don't have one.
Yeah.
All right, so the direction is, Mr. Gibbs, is to allow staff to take a look at it if they have any red flags, and if not, implement it.
Implement this one,
We've
yeah.
got 3 minutes left. The next one is 5335, care of students with chronic health conditions. Again, this is like peanuts and all that other stuff. We don't have that inside of ours.
No.
I would like to just give staff the opportunity to take a look at this and bring it back to us. It goes into like emergency allergy treatment. There's,
This is
again,
new legislation.
yeah, and I don't want to make decisions based on this. So if we can give it to staff to take a look at, bring back what they feel is important, we should be okay.
Okay,
We're good?
Yeah.
All right.
we need to be.
Dr. Rendell, do you have anything?
Yeah, no.
Okay. So 5335.01, moving on, diet modifications. This was.
This is the same.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing is the same. Looks almost identical, everything. Yep. So this is identical. I don't even think we need to, yeah, we don't need to update it. We can pass it. If you guys
The
are
next one's
okay
the
with it.
same, too.
5340, student accidents.
I like short policies.
Yep. Okay. That's good. I think it is identical. So if you guys are okay, just time stamping it, saying that we've reviewed it, staff doesn't need to take a look. Are we good with that?
Yep.
Okay, 5341.
There's no updates to this one, but this is another one that, sorry, this is
Wait a
another
minute,
one of
did
those
we-
that does not have an administrative procedure, but it says that we will have one. Or we don't have one with this number on it.
Right, it's not tied to it, so
Yeah.
check it out.
All right.
This is where, yeah. Okay, yeah. Got it, Dr. Rendell?
Do.
All right, we got one more minute. Let's nail one. Let's go through it.
Oh, boy, you picked that.
Next one is 5350,
This is not a
student
1 minute
suicide
conversation.
awareness. Do we want to just stop where we are?
revised this in 21, and they do have an update in 22, so we might need to take a look.
Yeah, this one's not a 1 minute
You
conversation.
guys want to pause on this one right here? Start on this one next?
Yeah.
That's
All
our
right.
line right there.
All righty. That means that we went through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
Mr. Chair, can I make a recommendation or an ask for the next time that we
26.
look at these? Is it possible for us to do a special
Yep.
workshop and nothing else whatsoever enters that agenda besides these policies? Because I feel like they keep getting pushed back because of other things that are pressing. So even if it's a different day or we start it in the morning or something, it doesn't have to be the same day. I don't really like marathon meetings like you. I feel the same way. So is it possible to just, for our next workshop, when it comes to policy review, nothing else enters the agenda besides policy review?
So I would say that the next dates that we have on the calendar, which would be like 8:10, 8:17, 8:15, 8:24, that are not, because I was thinking the same thing. I've got a couple of little follow-ups, but those 4 dates, we could ask them, they're Tuesdays and Thursdays, to try to look at our availability, and I'd like to come back, because I do think, once we knock this one out, it's not monstrous from here. There's not, you know what I mean? So I think that we can accomplish, and we
Once
do
a-
need to get these things done.
Once upon a time, we had said everybody hold Tuesdays, so rather than doing Tuesdays and Thursdays, if we could just kind of stick to that
Sure.
on the Tuesdays that we don't have board meetings,
alternating
that there's not,
Tuesday.
if there's an event going on or whatever, that
We'll
we,
adjust.
because it wouldn't even have to be in here.
No, we could go in one of those side rooms and. do-
Right, if we're just gonna
So
limit it to.
Would you guys be okay with just taking the next, like, 3 Tuesdays and just knocking them out?
I would-
Let's wait till school starts, because we're still summer and people might still want to
Well,
go do
that-
things.
that-
I mean,
that
we're
sounds
really, we're
great.
so close.
Yeah.
So
Well, you
let's
mean
look,
after the board meeting, because our next meeting is what, August?
August 10th.
8th, so
Tuesday.
the Tuesdays after.
so that
this.
would be, the next
The
one
8th.
would
Like the
be the
15th, yeah.
15th. So we could say, okay, guys, like, the 15th is the next one, then we have a board meeting, I think, on the 24th.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next one would be like the 31st of August? I think there's 31 days. in there.
I think you got the dates wrong.
I don't know.
Okay, so there's the 8th, we have a board meeting, 15th we don't, 22nd we do, and 29th we don't.
So,
Right, so the
so we
29th.
could do the 15th, the 29th.
Yep. And we could just consistently say, okay, just book out the next
Yeah.
3 or 4.
But some of these sections are really big.
Yep.
I don't want to, like, if we're going to say, I don't want to, like, we're going to do the 5,000s and the 6,000s,
No.
just say, we're going to commit to
We just go like 9,
however many hours.
Can we do like 4
9 to-
hours?
9
and
to 10
cap it?
o'clock?
I was
9 to
gonna say,
10
can we
o'clock
just do
at night?
4
8
blocks
hours.
and then keep continuing,
10
just
PM?
pick up where we
And
left
we'll go as
off?
far as
Well-
we can in 4 hours.
I would, 4 hours is good, or do you guys want to go a little bit
3.
longer? I just want to get them done.
She said 3.
3. Well, lunch. Right, lunch.
I think 4 hours is good, and then just pick up where you left off the next time.
I
We're
mean,
blocking off
The
the whole
faster
day.
you get through it, the more pressure it is on staff to get them back to us too.
I mean, I don't mind, like we're doing it now, we're just, because we're still getting to it, but it just, we'll go as far as we can, but,
We
because
have a lot of policies. that
it's,
are-
but I also, I want to do a good job reviewing it.
I know.
And I don't want to just slap through it, and I'm telling you right now, if we have board meetings to read through and prepare for,
Right.
and then on the other week, we're trying to go through policies, I'm not,
All right.
I don't think it's good.
Let's lock off 2
Yeah.
4-hour days, right? And then let's see how that gets us.
That's more
And
manageable.
then if we get through it really well, and if we get stuck up, then we'll come back.
Okay.
So you had made a suggestion for the 15th, you said, and the 30th,
It's the
31st?
29th is a Tuesday.
29th.
The alternating Tuesday.
So 15th and 29th, I think we could come back from,
Can we do these ones at 9 a.m.? Is there
from
anything that
7,
stops us?
from 7 to 12? Is that what I heard you guys say? 7?
9 to 1.
9 to 1?
9 to 1.
What, 9 to 1 or 8 to 4, 12? What do you guys want?
I would prefer mornings. I mean, I would just prefer to, yeah.
Get it out of the way?
Mm-hmm.
Can we get in here at 8?
9 to 1 sounds really good.
8 to 12?
8 to
No,
12 or 9 to 1?
No, I can't do 8.
Kids drop off.
Not gonna
Okay.
happen. I
All right,
have
so we'll
to
do
get my
9
daughter to
9 to
school.
1. 9 to 1?
Yeah, and then drive here. No less.
All right, we'll
Would
get
that
it.
be okay?
If it
Paul,
was like a pressing emergency, I'd be here at 8 o'clock, but no,
Paul,
we can push it.
If we just decide like we're animals and we really want to continue it and we all feel really good, we could just continue, right? We don't have to stop at 1.
We just advertised the start time,
That's it.
so the
Good.
meeting goes.
All right.
Good.
So we can just, so if you guys aren't looking at your watches, I might just keep going.
Removes all watches and phones and everything.
If we're going to go through the lunch hour, we won't need to watch.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Probably
then,
will tell you.
will be grumbling.
and just so you guys, a couple real quick things. I can bring these up tonight. I'll bring these up tonight.
Okay.
You guys good? Dr. Rendell, do you have anything?
Good.
Everybody else good? All right,
Okay. 1 hour break.
we're good.